Chapter 713. Han Fei wasn't surprised to see a sea-swallowing seashell from the red demon's belly, but he didn't think it was of good quality. He had even taken out a sea-swallowing seashell from a half-mermaid. However, there was nothing good in the sea-swallowing seashell from the half-mermaid, only a lot of spiritual spring water and a few pieces of materials. However, this was the first time that Han Fei had seen the demonization scroll. Han Fei had a guess in his heart. This demonization scroll shouldn't be a good thing. After all, it was only a demon-level, low-quality cultivation method and a semi-finished product. What did this mean? This meant that this red demon was trying to cultivate this method to break through the barrier of level 49 and become a sea demon. But the half-mermaid shouldn't be. Whether in appearance or aptitude, the half-mermaid was much better than the red demons and the inferior manfish. Would he use the demonization scripture? Han Fei felt that the half-mermaid should have cultivated a more advanced cultivation method of the demon race. The reason why they didn't carry it with them was, who the hell would throw a cultivation method on their body? Things like cultivation techniques should be thrown out one by one. Since he had already memorized it, why would he need to keep the cultivation technique itself? Of course, it didn't matter to Han Fei. After all, he only had the true spirit fishing art, which was a common skill. It was useless for others to rob it. It was everywhere. Only the true spirit fishing art above the 6th level was relatively rare. But for the first 5 levels, to be honest, many people would rather change their cultivation method than practice the true spirit fishing art. At this moment, Han Fei saw the word, can be fused, again. Previously, he had fused the sea racing art, the flying fish technique, and the shadow swimming art into the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance, a venerable level combat skill. What should the demonization scroll be fused with? However, when Han Fei looked around in his mind, he suddenly froze. Fish transformation technique? Fish transformation technique, demon level, low quality, introduction. A semi-finished transformation type combat skill that successfully transforms people into fish with a survival rate of up to 80%. Some human beings will split and turn into demons. Deduction cost, 0/30,000,000. Deduction result. Unknown remarks. Can be fused. Han Fei frowned. The demonization scroll and the fish transformation technique can be fused? Previously, when the fish transformation technique was deduced to the demon level, low quality, it couldn't be deduced anymore. But now, it could actually be fused, and it could be fused with the sea demon's cultivation method. What did this mean? The fish transformation technique turned out to be a sea demon's cultivation method? Han Fei took a deep breath. This discovery was quite significant. He got the fish avatar technique from the fiery mountain in the first secret realm of the level 2 fishery. There should be combat skills and arts left by human beings there, right? Could it be that a long time ago human beings had already been sea demons? No, the demon level, low-quality fish avatar technique was deduced by me. Han Fei was shocked. Suddenly, he discovered a secret. In the past, countless people had secretly studied the secrets of fish transformation. They thought that their research in this area was already quite deep. But in fact, the more they researched, the more they discovered that they didn't develop the technique of transforming humans into fish, but they developed the cultivation system of sirens as humans. But later, some strong masters discovered this secret and began to block the research of the fish transformation technique. That was why later human masters killed those who studied or even practiced the fish transformation technique. Because in the eyes of those strong masters, those who practiced the fish transformation technique had actually become sea demons. The strong masters no longer regarded these people who practiced the fish avatar technique as human beings. This explained why many people returned to the sea after turning into demons and then fought against the human race. Could it be that the historical battles between sea demons and human beings actually evolved in this way? Han Fei once suspected that there were no sea demons in this world, but someone had opened up this road. Therefore, human beings became sea demons and became a brand new race. If his conjecture was correct, then in fact, The real top masters or heavenly talents among sea demons were actually descendants of human beings. They were just a branch of human beings. Han Fei glanced at the demonization scroll and then at the fish transformation technique. He really wanted to fuse them now to see what would happen. However, the spiritual energy he had now was limited. Once he fused them, it would inevitably consume a lot of spiritual energy. And he was still in the deep sea, and there might be enemies in all directions. It was obviously not cost-effective to fuse them at this time. Even if he fused them, he probably wouldn't practice them. After all, this thing directly turned him into a demon. Originally, Han Fei's original purpose was to let himself have the amazing skill of 72 transformations. But now, it was obviously not the case. Perhaps, if he kept deducing, he could perfectly exchange the identity of a human and a sea demon, just like Yang Ruoyun did. But at least not for the time being. Why should I become a demon instead of a human? A fish demon? These thoughts turned quickly in Han Fei's mind. Seeing that it was not useful, Han Fei simply gave up for the time being. On the other hand, why did these red demons appear here? Besides, according to Han Fei's observation just now, this guy was patrolling, right? Could it be that more than 8,000 kilometers away had completely become the territory of sea demons? Whether it was or not, if this red demon was killed here, it might attract other sea demons. His top priority now was to find Xia Xiaochan. He couldn't stay in this damn place. Daughter, let's go. This time, Han Fei's speed was not fast, because there were indeed a lot of powerful creatures here. The strength he showed was not high, so he couldn't scare away those powerful creatures at all. Less than half an hour later, Han Fei saw another red demon. This time, it wasn't just the red demon alone. There were also two inferior manfish behind it. Han Fei's expression changed slightly. Something seemed to be wrong. It was less than 10,000 kilometers away, right? Why did so many red demons and inferior manfish appear so frequently? Han Fei was waiting. If there was only one red demon and two inferior manfish, it wouldn't be a big problem. Now, his blood-drinking knife had sealed a spirit in the tsunami jellyfish. As long as he caught them off guard, he could easily kill them. At this time, the advantage of Han Fei's perception range of up to 36 kilometers was extremely obvious at this moment. He had been waiting for the red demon and the inferior manfish on their way. Han Fei's body was fluctuating with the waves. When the red demon and the inferior manfish appeared 800 meters away, Han Fei's extremely dazzling knife instantly burst out. The knife light suddenly appeared 5 meters away in front of the red demon. At that moment, an extremely sharp howl suddenly appeared in the minds of the red demon and the two inferior manfish. The red demon's body stiffened. At the moment when it was hit by the knife light, it hadn't come back to its senses. As soon as the knife light slashed out, the red demon was killed. By the way, an inferior manfish was also killed on the spot by Han Fei. There was another inferior manfish, because it was not within the attack range of this knife, so it didn't die. However, it was only 800 meters away. Han Fei rushed out at top speed and covered it in an instant. When Han Fei arrived, the inferior manfish seemed to have just recovered. When it saw Han Fei, its eyes were full of shock and astonishment. Unfortunately, it had no time to fight back and was chopped off by Han Fei. Han Fei searched and found that there was no sea-swallowing seashells in the inferior manfish's body, so they fell directly to the bottom of the sea. The main reason was that the killing of the inferior manfish couldn't be concealed. If this place was really within the detection range of the sea monsters, then sooner or later they would find that the red demon and the inferior manfish were missing. Besides, when the corpses fell to the bottom of the sea, they would be devoured by sea creatures in no time. At that time, they wouldn't even know how they died. This was even more convenient than throwing them in Forge the Universe. Of course, Han Fei kept their harpoons. After all, a harpoon meant that he had killed an inferior manfish. Why didn't he throw away the red demon's body too? Han Fei just wanted to create a false impression. A false impression that the red demon was not dead, but just missing. Less than 10 minutes after killing this red demon, Han Fei had just killed a tooth-grinding shark, and an unexpected situation suddenly appeared in his perception. In his perception, there was a human fishing boat sailing over the sea, seeming to be looking for something. Han Fei just perceived it and found that it was a 6-star powerhouse. Swish! Han Fei immediately went into Forge the Universe. His concealment array and stealth array might not be able to hide from the detection of a 6-star powerhouse, so Forge the Universe was the safest. However, Han Fei was stunned. Did the Scattered Stars Island react so quickly? It's only been less than 8 hours, right? How could they have already sent someone to chase me here? In Forge the Universe, Han Fei frowned. It seemed that this time he went to sea without permission. He would not only face the crisis in the sea but also the investigation from human beings. For a moment, Han Fei was quite stressed. He had to find a way to find Xia Xiaochan as soon as possible. If he guessed right, according to Gong Wenhai's description, someone must have also gone to chase Xia Xiaochan. However, their tracking ability should not be as strong as his. He had Little White to lead the way. How could the Scattered Stars Island chase him? Suddenly, Han Fei's eyes flickered, and he looked at his waist tag. Yes. I have been thousands of kilometers away from the undersea chimney. Why am I still being tracked? Han Fei immediately took off his waist tag and threw it directly into Forge the Universe. He was a little speechless. Does this waist tag have a tracking effect? If so, Xia Xiaochan is in danger. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 714. High in the Sky. When Su Mo received the order to capture Han Fei, the latest location he learned was the undersea chimney. In fact, it didn't matter whether he knew Han Fei's location or not. Xia Xiaochan disappeared in the undersea chimney, so if Han Fei wanted to find her, his first stop should be the undersea chimney. However, when Su Mo rushed to the undersea chimney, the dense sea creatures gathered together made his blood freeze. Even though he had already become a hidden fisher, he still felt that he couldn't resist them. And although Han Fei was a heavenly talent, he had just become an intermediate hanging fisher, so he couldn't resist them. So Su Mo kept moving forward. Just now, when he noticed that someone was perceiving him, his first reaction was naturally Han Fei. Quickly rushing over, Su Mo found that there was no one here. At this moment he was flying above the sea in a daze. How can there be no one? Even if it is a red demon or a half-mermaid, they should at least show up. No, I heard that Han Fei is quite proficient in arrays. Did he use a concealment array and a breath-concealing array? Su Mo clenched the spear in his hand. Facing a heavenly talent, even if he was about to become a hidden fisher, he must not take it lightly. Because according to the known intelligence, Han Fei's peak combat power could fight a peak-level hanging fisher. Besides, according to the intelligence, Han Fei had already killed peak-level hanging fishers, and the peak-level hanging fishers were the best among them. However, after searching every corner of dozens of kilometers, Su Mo still didn't find anything different. After staying for half an hour, Su Mo controlled the fishing boat to leave in doubt. Han Fei was sitting cross-legged in Forge the Universe, rummaging through the sea-swallowing seashell of the Red Demon. As a result, he found 100 caddies of spirit awakening fluid in the sea-swallowing seashell of this red demon. Does every red demon carry so much spirit awakening fluid with them? Han Fei couldn't help but be overjoyed. Although he didn't find anything else, nor did he find any cultivation methods like the demonization scroll, 100 caddies of spirit awakening fluid was already quite valuable. According to the price of 5,000 points per caddy, killing a red demon would be worth 500,000 points. Was there anything more profitable than this in the world? Even if he refined weapons at a 30% discount in the refining hall every day, it wouldn't be as profitable as killing 2 or 3 red demons in the sea outside the Scattered Stars Island. Could it be that these red demons fought with Xia Xiaochan for the undersea chimney? Han Fei guessed that the undersea chimney had just been robbed. These red demons were so close, and they had spirit awakening fluid with them, which meant that these red demons might have robbed the undersea chimney. Otherwise, he really couldn't figure out how he could get 100 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid from a red demon. Moreover, why did it have to be 100 caddies? It didn't seem to be more or less, as if it had been allocated a fixed quota. Han Fei licked his lips. Whatever. Let's drink it first. Since I can't go back anytime soon, I should try my best to improve my strength. This time, Han Fei didn't feed the spirit awakening fluid to Little Black, Little White, or the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Last time, he had fed them 2,800 kilograms, but he still couldn't push them to level 40. On one hand, it must be because the quality of his contractual spiritual beasts was too high. Therefore, a large amount of spirit awakening fluid was needed to push it forward. On the other hand, he had too many contractual spiritual beasts. Including Little Black and Little White, he had 4. If he divided them evenly, the amount of spirit awakening fluid would inevitably be reduced. Although he could feed all the spirit awakening fluid to a single one, such as Little Black or Little White, however, this would inevitably cause an imbalance in strength. Besides, each contractual spiritual beast had its own abilities, and it wasn't a big deal to just improve one of them. So Han Fei began to pour it into his mouth crazily. The spirit awakening fluid tasted a little sweet and sour. For some reason, Han Fei always felt that he was drinking Yakult. When Han Fei swallowed the spirit awakening fluid, the black light in his mind appeared again. Han Fei immediately stopped swallowing, closed his eyes, and felt it. What was that? Where did the black light come from? Han Fei had always wondered why there was light in black. This was very strange, but that thing just flashed away and he couldn't find it at all. Seeing no special reaction, Han Fei continued to swallow. His upper limit of spiritual energy began to decrease a little, from 11,228 points to 11,001 points. After swallowing more than 50 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid, his spiritual energy began to slowly increase again. When Han Fei drank up 200 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid, his upper limit of spiritual energy had become 11,608 points. His level was still 44, the same as before. His upper limit of spiritual energy was only less than 400 points more than at the beginning. Han Fei frowned. The effect of this thing is not very good. 200 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid, 1 million points of credit. Ordinary people might not be able to save so many points even if they worked hard for 4 years. He drank it up in a moment, but his strength didn't improve much. Han Fei moved a little, and his physique seemed to be a little better, but he felt that the improvement was very small. Wait, I saw that Chao Qiu seemed to improve quite fast after drinking the spirit awakening fluid. Why am I so slow? Han Fei was confused. It had only been a little more than half an hour. He didn't know if the person outside had left or not. Forget it, he'd better wait a little longer. It was important to find Xia Xiaochan, but once he was targeted, it would be more of a waste of time. Han Fei understood this. After chewing a spiritual fruit, Han Fei found that after drinking the spirit awakening fluid, the spiritual energy in his body seemed to be no longer conflicting, so he immediately ate a dozen more. When he felt that the spiritual energy in his body began to become a little unstable, he stopped eating. At this moment, it had been almost half an hour. With a thought, Han Fei appeared in the sea again. In the sea, a snake-pattern fish was startled by the sudden appearance of Han Fei and quickly fled. Han Fei didn't care about it. He perceived that there was no one in the sky, nor did he perceive the appearance of any red demons or inferior manfish. Han Fei called out Little Black and Little White again. "Daughter, let's keep looking." After a full 2 hours, the sky was already dark and the moonlight was shining on the sea. In the deep sea, Han Fei walked and fought. Suddenly, Little White rushed in a certain direction. Han Fei's eyes lit up. Did I find it? After a while, the first thing that came into Han Fei's perception was the wreckage of a big ship. The big ship was half buried in the seabed mud, and the other half was exposed. Even so, it didn't look small. It looked like a cruise ship, much larger than ordinary fishing boats. When Han Fei saw the cruise ship, he rushed to it as fast as he could. Han Fei thought that this must be the way the hexagon starfish led him. He put Xia Xiaochan into its door, then found a place to search for her. It must be like this. However, Han Fei suddenly braked after rushing a kilometer away. Han Fei? Han Fei suddenly stopped and his face changed slightly. He perceived the half-mermaids. Besides, not only did he perceive the half-mermaids, but it seemed that the half-mermaids inside also perceived him. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment Han Fei felt his blood freeze. In the shipwreck, 8 inferior manfish, 5 red demons, and 2 half-mermaids suddenly emerged. At this moment, the leading half-mermaid directly led the crowd and rushed in Han Fei's direction. Han Fei glanced at Little White. "I told you to look for Xia Xiaochun. Why did you bring her to the sea demon's nest?" But then, Han Fei found that something was wrong. Little White's perception couldn't be wrong. Was Xia Xiaochun caught by these sea demons? Unfortunately, he had no time to check what was in the shipwreck now. 15 sea demons suddenly emerged. No matter how arrogant he was, he didn't dare to stay. Immediately, Han Fei put away Little Black and Little White, attached to Little Gold, activated the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance, and rushed away. Han Fei was not running for his life. If Xia Xiaochun was caught by these sea demons, the only way to save her was to kill these sea demons first. If there were only 2 or 3 red demons, Han Fei thought he could catch them off guard and kill 1 or 2 first. But now, the other party had 2 half-mermaids and 5 red demons. If he guessed right, these red demons were all level 49 creatures. They should be at the same level as the 2 he had killed before. If they were not peak-level red demons, he wouldn't be afraid. But once they were peak-level red demons, their combat power couldn't be underestimated. Even if the red demons were much weaker than the half-mermaids, they were still comparable to ordinary peak-level hanging fishers. If he fought against 5 peak-level hanging fishers alone, even if he could win, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. While running, Han Fei took out the enhanced version of Poison God. There was no need to set up an array or use the infinity water at all, because those sea demons were chasing him. Therefore, their course of action was the same as his. He only needed to control the seawater, slightly control the enhanced version of Poison God to spread slowly, and they would naturally hit him. Han Fei didn't hesitate at all. He directly grabbed a kilogram of Poison God and laid it on his course of action. At the same time, he slowed down. After 2 minutes, Han Fei sensed that those sea demons passed through that area without any defense at all, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 3rd update? Asking for votes. It's already the 3rd update today. It's too hard for me. I just woke up and saw that it was already past 6, so I immediately rushed over to update. It's really busy during the new year and I really don't have much time to write, so I've been writing at night. Reminder, be surprised and pay attention to rumors, beware of profiteers who raise prices, beware of scammers who make money from national disasters. End of this chapter. Chapter 7:15. In the process of escaping, Han Fei's speed was getting slower and slower. Han Fei couldn't help sighing. Chow Chio Chow Chio. Don't be fooled by this fellow's foolishness, he was an extremely dangerous fellow. Something like the Poison God was simply a bug. If used well, it could greatly guarantee his survivability. When the sea demons passed through the area of the Poison God for less than 10 seconds, Han Fei stopped running. The distance between the 2 sides was only about 2,000 meters. When the 2 leading half-mermaids felt that something was wrong with them, Han Fei had already started to chase them. However, because the speed of the half-mermaids and red demons was too fast just now, Han Fei didn't feel anything wrong. Therefore, although he felt uncomfortable at this moment, he didn't find anything wrong with him. However, when Han Fei had turned around and rushed towards them, the 2 half-mermaids suddenly changed their expressions. At this time, if they still didn't find something wrong, they would be stupid. Yah! The 2 half-mermaids began to roar. But looking back, except for the 5 red demons, the inferior manfish had begun to hold their stomachs and vomit. While vomiting, they were a little manic and bombarded randomly. The 2 half-mermaids tried to run, but after running less than a kilometer, they felt that their stomachs were about to explode. It was not that they didn't want to run, but that they couldn't run at all. This poison was really terrifying. In such a short time, it had already drained a lot of their combat power. Roar! Accompanied by a roar, Han Fei sneered. None of you can escape today. The distance of more than 2,000 meters was covered in the blink of an eye. Han Fei had already used the draw technique, and a terrifying knife light shot out and appeared in front of one of the half-mermaids in an instant. Roar! White flames suddenly enveloped the half-mermaid. 3 sets of battle suits and a big shield flew out of this guy's body in a row. Crack, 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 clang. Han Fei was a little stunned. Why did this half-mermaid react so quickly? Wasn't it already deeply poisoned? However, although this half-mermaid blocked Han Fei's draw technique, it was still sent flying by Han Fei's knife and began to vomit and have diarrhea. The other half-mermaid also burst into white flames and took out a golden harpoon. Han Fei's pupils constricted. A top half-mermaid heavenly talent? Han Fei didn't expect to see a half-mermaid of this level here. However, even though he was a prodigy, an unknown substance began to flow out of his mouth. However, this half-mermaid seemed to still be able to fight. The golden harpoon in his hand burst the seawater. Spiritual energy and demonic chi surged out of the sea like dragons, and he dashed at Han Fei at the fastest speed. Whoosh! Han Fei put on a semi-divine battle suit, and the semi-divine golden seal in his hand turned into a giant seal phantom, slapping at this guy. I don't believe that you can still maintain your peak strength after swallowing the enhanced version of Poison God. Clang! The seawater exploded. Within a radius of 1,000 meters, raging waves surged and rippled. Han Fei was sent flying by the blow, and a trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. This time, he deliberately did not use the majestic mystic spell. It turned out that the strength of this half-mermaid heavenly talent had been reduced by at least 30% to 40%. Otherwise, he wouldn't have only been slightly injured by the opponent's full-strength blow. Tell me, where are the people you caught? Han Fei stomped and rushed at it again. The phantom of the big seal was in the air, the seawater was rolling on both sides, and the spiritual energy was like fire. In the dark bottom of the sea, there was a dazzling light. Kill. This half-mermaid only said one word, and a huge scorpion, with a terrifying speed, pierced the void with its tail and directly stabbed at him. Han Fei didn't expect the other party to have this move, so he directly blocked it with his battle suit. Bam! Han Fei was directly stabbed into the bottom of the sea. On the seabed, smoke and dust billowed, and it was turbid. The half-mermaid was very shocked. The battle suit on this person was so strong that it could resist his full-strength blow head-on. Wasn't it comparable to his golden battle suit? The half-mermaid only felt that his internal organs were rolling, and he couldn't control his body anymore. In the next second, a knife light suddenly appeared in front of him and swept past his neck. He activated the amulet, but it couldn't stop Han Fei. After all, this half-mermaid had no combat power left. The half-mermaid was extremely aggrieved at the moment of death. It was not that he couldn't fight, but that his combat power was declining every second. After 2 consecutive full-strength blows, he had no more power to fight. Han Fei hacked this half-mermaid with a knife, pulled off the golden battle suit and golden harpoon, and threw them into Forge the Universe. With a thought, the infinity water came out. If this half-mermaid had an immortal seal, he would continue to poison him until he died. Not far away, the half-mermaid who had just been blown away summoned his companion spirit and was taking him to escape. Sacrificing punch. Han Fei didn't hold back anymore. The half-mermaid was poisoned, but the opponent's companion spirit was still intact, so he had to kill it. He punched out, and the scarlet fist mark shot out a dazzling light on the bottom of the sea with an indomitable momentum. Han Fei didn't pay any more attention to the half-mermaid because 5 red lights appeared in his vision. Majestic mystic spell. Han Fei took a mouthful of candle dragon blood, stepped on the coiled turtle array, and blocked the attack with the golden seal. He had recognized that the red spear was the life spear of a red demon, which was equivalent to a life-risking blow. Han Fei had already experienced the life-risking blow of a level 49 creature when he was on the skeleton shore. At that time, if it hadn't been for Cao Qiu's life-saving fist mark that offset most of the power of the red spear, he might not have been able to easily block it. This time, there were a total of 5 life spears. It could be seen that these red demons knew they couldn't resist it anymore and tried their best to keep Han Fei here. Overlord. The semi-divine golden seal was bombarded out and smashed directly to the bottom of the sea. It was a pity that his seal combat skills were not good enough, so he couldn't block the life spear with a semi-divine weapon. At this time, the Overlord appeared, carrying a large shield in his hand, and 9 defense arrays burst out on the shield in a row. Crack, crack, crack. After breaking 7 arrays in a row, the 5 life spears were blocked. The attack of the red demons was over. Han Fei's attack had arrived, and the draw technique had swept over, directly wiping out 2 red demons. On the other side, the half-mermaid was hit by the sacrificing punch, leaving a mark of 1 kilometer long on the seabed, causing smoke and dust to billow on the seabed. Han Fei waved his hand and the golden seal returned to his hand with a swish. Then, Han Fei turned around and smashed it at a red demon who was still trying to escape. At the same time, Han Fei leaned forward and 200 blue sea wandering dragon daggers pierced out of his body, directly encircling the 2 red demons who had vomited so much that they couldn't even be recognized. Han Fei's mouth bulged as if he was rinsing his mouth, and then he spat out a large mouthful of blood. All of this took less than 5 breaths of time. And the infinity water was shaking. As soon as the half-mermaid heavenly talent came out, it was invaded by the strengthened version of Poison God and was no longer a threat. Fortunately, this half-mermaid heavenly talent didn't use the dying strike. Otherwise, he would have wasted a little more time. After dozens of minutes, after killing this half-mermaid, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp came out, and the 9-star chain directly buckled the red demons and half-mermaids that had been killed by him and quickly rushed to the inferior manfish ahead. In his perception, those inferior manfish were still 10 kilometers away. Their speed was not as fast as the half-mermaids and red demons. Besides, their poison resistance was not high at first glance. So, before they got here, they had already collapsed. When Han Fei arrived, only 3 of these inferior manfish were still resisting. The others had completely collapsed, their skin had cracked, and they were vomiting everything out of their mouths. With a thought in Han Fei's mind, the surrounding seawater rolled up and the infinity water burst out, sweeping them away. In fact, he didn't particularly hate sea demons. There was no need to torture them. He could just kill them. At this point, all 15 sea demons were killed. Han Fei found a total of 7 sea-swallowing seashells. Those inferior manfish didn't even have a sea-swallowing seashell. Han Fei directly took their harpoons, as well as a set of golden battle suits and golden harpoons. As for their corpses, Han Fei didn't want any of these poisoned ones. Otherwise, what would he do? Pollute Forge the universe? Han Fei didn't look at any of the 7 sea-swallowing seashells. He swallowed several mouthfuls of candle dragon blood and quickly rushed in the direction of the shipwreck. Now it was a race against time. The battle here just now caused a lot of noise. Just a few hits on the seabed caused a lot of vibrations. Not to mention the vibrations caused by him and the half-mermaid heavenly talent fighting with all their strength twice. After a moment, Han Fei's perception swept every corner of the shipwreck, but he didn't find anyone. Han Fei went in, rummaged around, and found a rotten hull in the shipwreck where the sea demons were just now. Here, there were some half-eaten big fish, crabs, and other things. Obviously, they had eaten here just now. Sea demons are still sea demons. Even though they have cultivated and turned into a human form, they still eat raw food. Han Fei's face was full of disgust. There were no other creatures here. Han Fei transmitted his voice to the entire shipwreck. Master Hexagon Starfish, did you hear that? Did you use some kind of formation to hide yourself? I'm Han Fei. Master Hexagon Starfish? After calling a few times, Han Fei found that no one responded. With a flash between his eyebrows, Little Black and Little White appeared. Han Fei asked, "Daughter, is this the place? Your mommy isn't here? Are you in the wrong place?" Little White swam out of the ship. As soon as she swam out, Han Fei suddenly put away Little Black and Little White. 9 tails attached to him, with the golden seal in his left hand and the blood-drinking knife in his right hand. He was wearing a golden battle suit and the 6 spirit armor. It's you? First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 716. Han Fei was caught up in the end. He thought this 6-star powerhouse had run far away, but he didn't expect that he would appear again. Thinking about it, it must have been attracted by the battle just now. Su Emo didn't directly enter the sea. To be honest, he was really shocked. He had passed by this place just now. However, he sensed a group of sea demons, including a half-mermaid. As a peak-level hanging fisher, he didn't dare to fight them. However, when he came back, the sea demons were all gone. When he arrived at the place of the battle, he was dumbfounded. 2 half-mermaids, 5 red demons, and 8 inferior manfish. None of them survived. They were all killed. At first, he thought it was done by the people who were also sent to arrest Han Fei. However, when he entered the sea, he found that these sea demons were all poisoned. Their corpses were lying in the sea and no creatures would eat them. At that time, he remembered the information that Han Fei was good at using poison. However, he met him at this moment. Han Fei stood at the bow of the ship, looking indifferent and saying, "Do you want to catch me?" Su Emo sweated. "Han Fei, it's not your business to find Xia Xiaochan alone." As early as the moment Xia Xiaochan disappeared, someone had already gone to find her. "You'd better go back with me. It's a big taboo to go to sea without permission. However, if you kill so many sea demons at once, you will definitely make up for your mistake. At that time, I can also speak for you." Han Fei sneered. "Make up for my mistake? Are they going to find Xia Xiaochan or catch her? Just based on the words of the 2 people from the Dark Hunter Legion?" Su Emo frowned. Han Fei went to sea without permission. "I'm afraid he doesn't plan to go back for the time being." Su Emo said, "No matter what the result is, won't we know when Xia Xiaochan goes back?" Han Fei said lightly, "Their ability to find people is not as good as mine." Su Emo was stunned. "No, some hidden fishers went to look for her." Han Fei trembled slightly and then said angrily, "Fuck! Does a hidden fisher want to kill Xia Xiaochan?" Su Emo quickly shut up. He made a mistake and said, "No, they're just looking for someone. How can a hidden fisher attack Xia Xiaochan?" Han Fei smiled contemptuously. "I'll find my own girlfriend. I don't trust others. So, do you want to fight or let me go?" Su Emo swallowed slightly. If it was before, he would definitely dare to fight. However, after seeing the death of those sea demons just now, he would never fight Han Fei. This boy was only an intermediate hanging fisher. However, this strength was ridiculously strong. He had fought 15 people alone, and he had taken care of all of them. More importantly, he looked completely fine. How was he supposed to fight? Su Emo thought for a long time but couldn't think of an answer. It wasn't good to leave, but it wasn't good to stay either. Han Fei said, "Just say that you've never met me. Even if I go back in the future, I won't tell anyone. I'm leaving. If I find you again, I won't rest until you die." Su Emo gritted his teeth, took off the fishing boat and flew away. Are you kidding me? With the strength of this bastard, how could a hanging fisher defeat him? At least a hidden fisher should come to take him, right? Su Emo could feel Han Fei's fighting spirit. If he really fought, he would probably be the one to die. He didn't want to do such a thankless thing anymore. At least Su Emo could be sure that Han Fei was only guilty of going to sea without permission. However, Han Fei definitely didn't betray the human race. Otherwise, how could he have killed 15 sea demons in one breath? Thinking of those sea demons, Su Emo decided to take all the bodies back. Then, he would report to the higher-ups that he didn't find the person but found the battlefield. This fully proved that Han Fei was so strong that even if he found the body, he wouldn't be able to bring it back. This also indirectly proved that Han Fei didn't betray the human race but was simply looking for someone. In this way, the higher-ups wouldn't send him, a peak-level hanging fisher, to look for him. As for whether Han Fei could come back or not, it had nothing to do with him. I'm staying comfortably on the Scattered Stars Island. Isn't it nice? It wasn't until Su Emo left his perception range that Han Fei secretly breathed a sigh of relief. A peak-level hanging fisher with 6 stars represented extremely strong strength. If this Sumo's strength was average, he would at most have a 5-star rank. It would be impossible for him to reach 6 stars. If he had to fight him, it would probably take him a lot of effort. After all, he had just experienced a big battle and was a little tired. His internal injuries hadn't fully healed, and his combat power was probably only about 70% of his peak state. Seeing Su Mo leave, Han Fei didn't immediately release Little Black and Little White, although Little White seemed to want to continue the search. Han Fei knew that now was not the time to search. He had just killed a half-mermaid heavenly talent. That guy definitely had a life tablet. How could no one notice that a half-mermaid with a semi-divine weapon was killed? If Han Fei thought that no sea demons would come to investigate, he would really think that the sea demons were idiots. So, after thinking about it, Han Fei summoned Little Black and Little White. "Daughter, point me in a direction." Little White turned for a while and aimed at Han Fei's left. With a flash between Han Fei's eyebrows, he put away Little Black and Little White, rushed out of the sea, took out the wind god boat, and flew more than 3,000 kilometers away. Then he plunged into the water. With a flash, he entered Forge the Universe. Han Fei needed to recover. He cast a divine healing technique on himself and began to rummage through the 7 sea-swallowing seashells he had just obtained. First of all, in the sea-swallowing seashells of the 5 red demons, there were 100 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid each. Han Fei had already guessed this in his heart, so he was not surprised at all. At the same time, Han Fei found a demonization scroll, which was almost exactly the same as the previous one. Thinking about it, this thing should be a common commodity in the Sea Demon Society, not something that could be hoarded. In addition, in the sea-swallowing seashells of these red demons, he found a new sea demon combat skill called Basic Combat Skills of Mermaids. However, the display showed that the quality was spirit level. Han Fei didn't even look at it and threw it aside. However, to Han Fei's surprise, Han Fei found some high-quality pearls in the sea-swallowing seashells of these red demons. There were not many of these pearls. Including the 2 red demons he had killed before, there were less than 100,000 in total. Would they also use high-quality pearls as currency? Han Fei pondered for a while. Sea demons were born in the sea, so their ability to dig out pearls should be much better than that of humans. If high-quality pearls were currency, then these sea demons must be very rich. Unless, for some reason, they didn't take their belongings with them. As for the rest, they were all ultra-quality materials, no special materials. Han Fei didn't check them one by one and directly threw them into Forge the Universe. When there was enough spiritual energy in the future, he would return to the Scattered Stars Island, and the misunderstanding would be resolved. Then he would go to the refining hall and earn a lot of points. After checking the sea-swallowing seashells of the red demons, the rest were naturally the sea-swallowing seashells of the 2 half-mermaids. Among them, in the sea-swallowing seashells of the heavenly talent half-mermaid, Han Fei found 1,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid and 2 sea demon combat skills. One was called Sea Spirit 3 Consecutive Stabs, Demon Level, Mid-Quality. The other was called Sea King's Secret Technique, Heaven Level, Mid-Quality. Han Fei was not interested in the Sea Spirit 3 Consecutive Stabs, mainly because its level was too low and he didn't know how to practice it. But the other, Sea King's Secret Technique, attracted Han Fei's attention. The Sea Demon's secret technique was not low level, so Han Fei naturally wanted to check it out. However, when he saw it, Han Fei frowned. It turned out that this so-called Sea King's secret technique was the reason why these half-mermaids burned with white flames when they fought. They actually used this method to summon the so-called Sea King's will. Therefore, the white flames were not flames at all, but a kind of will that came from nowhere. The sea demons believed that this kind of will was a gift from the king of the Sea Clan. After they prayed, the king in the sea gave them power. Han Fei was speechless. This secret technique could actually provide more than twice the combat power of the sea demons. And the side effects were surprisingly small, a bit similar to his majestic mystic spell. Just eating more and replenishing more energy could make up for it. No wonder any random half-mermaid would burn with white flames. It turns out that this thing is so powerful. But no matter how powerful it was, Han Fei found that it didn't seem to be useful to him. After all, This was aimed at the special body structure of the half-mermaids. In addition to the Sea King's secret technique, Han Ran was attracted by the more than 3,800 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, 1,200 caddies of spiritual spring, more than 30 mid-quality spiritual stones, and 12 high-quality spiritual stones. Wow. So rich? Han Fei swore that this was definitely the richest half-mermaid he had ever met. Han Fei's eyes were filled with jealousy when he saw this wealth. Why didn't the half-mermaid heavenly talents I met before have such wealth? Han Fei thought about it. It made sense. Before, they were either playing in competitions or exploring secret realms. Who would carry such wealth with them? So far, Han Fei had obtained 5,300 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, 2,100 caddies of spiritual spring, 33 mid-quality spiritual stones, 12 high-quality spiritual stones, and 120,000 high-quality pearls. And this was what he got in less than 5 hours at sea. Sure enough, the sea is better. Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 717. Han Fei was not a fool. He got 5,300 caddies of spirit awakening fluid from this batch of sea demons, which certainly aroused his curiosity. Did the sea demons really have so much spirit awakening fluid? Not necessarily. This batch of sea demons should have just robbed the undersea chimney, so even the red demons had spirit awakening fluid. When Le Renquang called him, he said he was going to deliver supplies. What did it mean that supplies needed to be delivered? It meant that the quantity of these supplies must be very large. So Han Fei had a guess. The amount of spirit awakening fluid produced by the undersea chimney this time might exceed his imagination, possibly reaching tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of caddies. In addition to the spirit awakening fluid, there might be other things. Otherwise, it couldn't be explained why 2 half-mermaids and a group of red demons and inferior manfish could have so much spirit awakening fluid. However, no matter how large the amount of spirit awakening fluid was, Han Fei planned to invest in himself first this time. First of all, because there were too few mid-quality and high-quality spiritual stones, they were only about 7 million points of spiritual energy. The 2,100 caddies of spiritual spring was even less, only about 2 million points of spiritual energy. Therefore, the spiritual energy he got this time was actually less than 10 million points. On the contrary, there was too much spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei felt that it might be enough to push him to the level of an intermediate hanging fisher. Looking at the spirit awakening fluid in front of him, Han Fei took a deep breath and immediately opened his mouth and began to drink it crazily. He urgently needed to become stronger now. There couldn't be only one batch of sea demons here. The battle had just ended, and he might have only encountered a small group of sea demons. There were even more that he hadn't met yet, but they should be in the nearby seas. Even though he had used the strengthened version of God of Poison in that small poke just now, he had still lost nearly 30% of his combat strength in a situation where he was not paying attention. If the number of sea demons doubled, or there were a few more half-mermaids, the result might be different. Gulp, gulp. As soon as the spirit awakening fluid entered his body, it immediately disappeared without a trace, as if turning into nothingness. He didn't know whether it dissipated in his limbs and bones, or turned into some kind of power and existed in his body in disguise. When Han Fei drank more than 200 caddies, the black light appeared again. This time, Han Fei didn't take it seriously at all. This thing had appeared from the very beginning, but it disappeared in a flash and did not affect him at all. Even the demon purification pot did not react, which meant that it should not be a big problem. The upper limit of his spiritual energy was slowly increasing. Han Fei felt that his body gradually turned from the feeling of being bathed in the spring breeze and drizzle to numbness. His bones, flesh, everything seemed to be glowing. When Han Fei poured about 600 caddies of spirit awakening fluid in a row, he broke the hurdle of level 45. However, this was not a breakthrough in cultivation. Therefore, it didn't show anything except that the upper limit of his spiritual energy had reached 12,000 points. When Han Fei injected more than 2,100 kilograms of spiritual energy into his body, he broke the minor barrier of level 46, and his upper limit of spiritual energy reached 13,000 points. When Han Fei poured more than 4,800 kilograms, he suddenly realized that the effect of the spirit awakening fluid was slowing down rapidly. Because of the suppression of his realm, the spirit awakening fluid couldn't be improved for the time being. What made Han Fei realize was that something black seemed to be stuck in the bottleneck of his breakthrough. That thing was preventing his strength from continuing to soar. What is this? Han Fei frowned. Isn't this thing appearing a little too frequently? What's in my body? If it's something bad, why doesn't the demon purification pot react at all? Han Fei stopped swallowing and drinking. Maybe he needed to consolidate his strength now. He didn't know if swallowing spirit awakening fluid could improve his strength indefinitely. If it could, then whoever had spirit awakening fluid would become stronger and stronger, to the point where no one could defeat him or her. Besides, it was said that the spirit awakening fluid itself was actually used to tap one's potential. Wasn't it a bit wrong to crazily use spirit awakening fluid to improve his strength like this? However, Han Fei hadn't confirmed it, so he wasn't sure. He looked at the data and the information popped up. Owner Han Fei's level greater than 46, intermediate hanging fisher, spiritual energy 5300556-13999. Spiritual power 1801-1801, perception range greater than 17,999 meters, spiritual heritage level 5, high quality spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 38, main art, void breaking technique, volume 4 of void fishing, demon level, divine quality. Han Fei's eyes suddenly narrowed. Did I break the bottleneck of my spiritual power? I didn't feel anything. Immediately, Han Fei was overjoyed and took out 20 level 2 soul crystals. These were collected by Lu Renquang for him. This guy seemed to have spent a lot of effort to collect 56 level 2 soul crystals. Although it was still far from the 5 million points of credit that Han Fei gave him, Lu Renquang must have put in a lot of effort. After half an hour, Han Fei slowly opened his eyes and frowned. The effect of the spiritual power breakthrough this time was not so obvious. It seemed to be caused by drinking too much spirit awakening fluid. It might also be that his perception also had a bottleneck. This caused his mental strength to stop at 1852 points, and it stagnated. And his perception range just reached 19,999 meters, and then it couldn't go any further. He also reached a bottleneck. However, Han Fei smiled. Even if I reached a bottleneck, so what? His current range of perception had already reached 20 kilometers, which was 40 kilometers. With the range of his senses, he could almost explore the entire skeleton shore by standing on it. Han Fei didn't intend to save the remaining 500 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid. Now he had to increase his strength. Since he couldn't do it himself, he would use Little Black and Little White. 500 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid was fed to Little Black and Little White by Han Fei. Little White's body was already emitting a holy brilliance. But this brilliance only lasted for a while and then disappeared. He didn't even reach level 39. It seems that the production of spirit awakening fluid should be more than I thought. Without tens of thousands of kilograms, it seems a bit unrealistic to increase my strength. This was only true for people like him, who had a lot of opportunities. If others spent points to buy it, how long would it take for them to buy enough spirit awakening fluid? After confirming that nearly an hour had passed, Han Fei appeared directly in the sea. As soon as he came out, Han Fei released his perception. With this perception, he directly found 2 inferior manfish within his perception range. These 2 inferior manfish seemed to be patrolling and seemed to be investigating. Sure enough, I've been discovered. Han Fei thought of something. He must have been discovered when he killed those sea demons. Even though he ran more than 3,000 kilometers away, there were still inferior manfish patrolling over. He set up a stealth array and a breath-concealing array for himself, and then with a flash between his eyebrows, Little Black and Little White appeared. Little Black, go kill them. If it was a red demon, Han Fei definitely wouldn't let Little Black kill them. But if it was just an inferior manfish, Han Fei wanted to see the current strength of Little Black and Little White. Even if Little Black couldn't kill them at once, he could still kill them. Although this place would soon be discovered after killing the inferior manfish, Han Fei had to do this. In the water, Little White's tracking ability was unparalleled. But outside the sea, Little White's tracking ability would be greatly reduced. After all, it was a fish. Although it could still survive out of the water, its tracking ability would be reduced. Besides, unless it floated to a height of 1,000 meters or even higher, it couldn't really avoid the perception of the sea demons. Otherwise, they weren't fools. Who wouldn't know how to sense it? The perception range of a half-mermaid was not small at all. Imagine, at an altitude of thousands of meters, how could he let Little White track him? The two inferior manfish were only less than 10 kilometers away from each other. Little Black pounced on the closest one, and Han Fei slowly moved to the middle of the two so that he could catch up with it later. The inferior manfish that could appear in the deep sea were actually not weak. It was just that their demonic heritage was relatively low, so their perception was not good, so they were relatively stupid. The inferior manfish that Little Black was staring at leaned forward and was swimming slowly in the water. From time to time, it scratched its arms and shoulders with its long webbed claws. Because the inferior manfish had not fully evolved, there were fin-like fins on both sides of its arms, legs, and back, which were sharp and long, so Little Black had to circle around to find a good place to bite. So Little Black chose the neck. In its view, that place was the most vulnerable. The inferior manfish seemed to feel something was wrong and suddenly looked back, but it saw nothing. But when it looked back, it suddenly felt the water ripples in front of it. It was about to make a sound, but its neck was bitten off by a big bloody mouth. It was bitten off, not bitten. Even Han Fei was a little shocked by Little Black's sharp teeth. At this moment, he aimed at the most vulnerable part of the inferior manfish, so he killed it with one blow. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Little Black was a natural hunter, a hunter more terrifying than human cultivators. If Little Black could reach level 49 or level 50, he would probably be a real ocean killer. Not to mention an inferior manfish, even a half-mermaid might be able to kill a hidden fisher-level powerhouse with a single bite. On this side, the inferior manfish was killed, and Han Fei saw that the other one didn't respond. Han Fei immediately sneered. It seemed that the inferior manfish's perception range was not large, definitely not within 5,000 meters. In this case, Han Fei didn't have to worry so much. After Little Black killed the second inferior manfish, Han Fei didn't even bother to find a sea-swallowing seashell and asked Little White to lead the way. However, leading the way this time gave Han Fei a headache. Almost every 30 to 50 kilometers, he would meet an inferior manfish. After killing more than 20 inferior manfish in a row, suddenly, a shrill roar spread hundreds of kilometers. Damn it! Han Fei was discovered. After swimming for less than 800 kilometers, he was discovered. Han Fei shouted, "Little White, full speed ahead." Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 7:18. This time, Han Fei didn't even bother to hide and directly began to rush. And Little White's speed, although not as fast as Little Gold's, could still match Han Fei's speed without the majestic mystic spell. Han Fei, Little Black, and Little White rushed forward side by side, leaving 3 water explosion patterns behind them. Because they were too fast, they left a trail of thousands of meters in the water, lasting for a long time. It was precisely because Han Fei didn't hide his position anymore that his position was discovered immediately. So, the first to appear were dozens of inferior manfish. Then, more and more inferior manfish appeared, and some appeared directly in front of Han Fei. "Since you force me to kill, then I'll kill you." Every time Han Fei slashed with the blood-drinking knife in his hand, a flickering knife light would fall in front of an inferior manfish with seawater that could break through the barrier. With one slash, an extremely strong invincible fighting intent appeared, and in the blink of an eye, an inferior manfish would be cut down. However, when Han Fei waved the knife for the first time, his heart skipped a beat. Did the invincible fighting intent weaken? No, it was because he had become stronger. At the beginning, Old Bai told him that the invincible fighting intent he comprehended did not belong to the category of knife intent, but was just an invincible will that he comprehended himself. As his strength grew stronger, this invincible will couldn't keep up with the pace of the improvement of his strength. At that time, because Han Fei didn't know how to comprehend knife intent, he didn't take it seriously. He thought to himself, temporarily invincible is okay. But now, when his strength broke through to the level of an intermediate hanging fisher, the invincible fighting intent didn't strengthen with the improvement of his realm. It could be seen that Han Fei's invincible fighting intent had stagnated. Although the inferior manfish still couldn't block his knife, no progress was no progress. After killing more than 20 inferior manfish, Han Fei finally admitted this fact. In his perception, Han Fei seemed to be unable to continue to break through. From all directions, including in front of him, there were endless inferior manfish pouncing at him. Han Fei suddenly stopped, turned his hand, and the blood-drinking knife disappeared into his body. With a flash between his eyebrows, he took back Little Black and Little White. Han Fei stood proudly in the dark sea, and a dazzling golden light gradually appeared on his fists. At this moment, the blood in Han Fei's body surged, and countless pictures appeared in his mind. That was the scene when he first cultivated the art of invincibility. At this moment, when he found that the invincible fighting will had weakened, it appeared again. As soon as this picture appeared, Han Fei's heart surged, as if a ferocious beast was awakening. If the invincible fighting intent doesn't improve, I'll fight until I'm invincible again. Han Fei knew that a fishing net had probably been laid out in a radius of thousands of kilometers. They were determined to catch him. This roar. Han Fei was wearing a semi-divine battle suit. When the first inferior manfish came, a dazzling golden light blasted out, and a powerful and invincible belief gathered on his fist mark. Boom! Like a cannonball, the inferior manfish drew a white mark in the sea and directly crashed to the bottom of the sea 1,000 meters away. Boom! The bottom of the sea was shaking, smoke was rolling, and rocks were breaking. Then from a long distance away, spears of spiritual energy broke through the air. Balls of spiritual energy were launched at Han Fei like water pressure cannons, and the harpoons were stabbed in the seawater, emitting intense cold light. Boom, boom, boom. The art of invincibility was fully activated. With Han Fei's body as the center, the dazzling golden fist marks overflowed from his body, scattering in all directions. In the dark seawater, cold light, water pressure cannons, golden fist marks, barrier-breaking water marks, impact ripples, battle effects emerged one after another, and ripples overlapped. None of the inferior manfish who were almost the same level as Han Fei, or even slightly stronger, could take a punch from Han Fei. The broken bodies of the inferior manfish were constantly being punched on the bottom of the sea. The roar resounded for dozens of kilometers on the bottom of the sea. The inferior manfish were roaring fiercely, rushing forward fearlessly. In the distance, the red demons and half-mermaids were rushing over quickly. When the first red demon appeared on the battlefield, within a radius of 3,000 meters from where Han Fei was, almost all the inferior manfish were lying on the ground. Their bodies were broken and they were vomiting blood. Some of their internal organs were broken, some of their heads were bleeding, and some were even directly blown into pieces. This was the third time Han Fei had drunk candle dragon blood. Every time, at least 100 or more inferior manfish would fall to the bottom of the sea forever. Not only at the bottom of the sea, but the battle fluctuations and soaring killing intent here even attracted the attention of some human masters. Perhaps those humans were still thousands of kilometers away. Some noticed the abnormal movements of the inferior manfish, and some sensed that there was a battle taking place through the weak vibration frequency of the seawater. Anyway, no matter how they discovered it, 5 or 6 people had already begun to rush in the direction where Han Fei was. After a while, some people met in the sky. "Brother, which side is fighting?" "I don't know. Were you also attracted here?" Someone appeared in the sky. "Who the fuck is so powerful as to directly fight in the sea?" Someone stood on the bow of the ship, holding a battle bow, and shot an arrow thousands of meters into the sea. He said lightly, "Someone is fighting. Go and help." When these people arrived at the battlefield, they sensed it and were immediately shocked. An intermediate hanging fisher? On the bottom of the sea. Han Fei was fighting 4 red demons alone. At this moment, Han Fei had activated the majestic mystic spell, and his body was glowing with golden light. He was tossing and turning under the continuous attacks of the 4 red demons. Golden fist marks bombarded the opponent's body like muffled thunder. Every time he struck, waves that were dozens of meters tall would surge out. Sensing that there were humans coming, Han Fei said to them via voice transmission, "Everyone, can I help you kill some inferior manfish?" Everyone was stunned. They had already sensed that no less than 300 inferior manfish had died on the seabed. Damn, was this all done by this intermediate hanging fisher? At this time, someone came from the sky. Seeing this scene, his expression changed several times. The newcomer said to him via voice transmission, "Han Fei, come back to the Scattered Stars Island with us before the half-mermaids arrive." Han Fei slapped the golden seal in his hand directly on the forehead of a red demon, knocking it to the ground. With a backhand golden fist mark, a crab rolled more than a dozen times in the water. Han Fei's eyes were cold. "Are you also here to catch me?" A few of them were already hunting at sea. At this time, a 6-star slaughterer had already jumped into the sea, attracting the attacks of dozens of inferior manfish. Someone asked the people who had just come, "This boy is called Han Fei. Why do you want to catch such a fierce heavenly talent? What did he do?" The newcomer had also fused with his spiritual beast, jumped into the water, and started fighting. While fighting, he said, Han Fei broke into the Dark Hunter Legion and went to the sea to look for someone. Someone said with a weird look, "An intermediate hanging fisher? Broke into the Dark Hunter Legion? Are you kidding me?" The man said, "He broke into the Dark Hunter Legion with the door-carrying marshal. Do you think he can break into it?" The group of people was speechless. Who on earth is this boy? He broke into the Dark Hunter Legion with the door-carrying marshal? Someone shouted, "Forget about breaking into the Dark Hunter Legion. Han Fei, why are you still fighting down there? Run away before the strong enemy arrives." Han Fei responded, "I'm practicing my combat skills. I'll be done in a moment." Han Fei was really practicing his combat skills. He hadn't mastered the art of invincibility yet. Since the cultivation of the steps into the sea, he felt that the art of invincibility had stagnated, and he couldn't make any progress. At this moment, Han Fei ignored an attack coming from behind and punched a red demon directly in front of him. There seemed to be a spiral energy around his fist. With a bang, he punched a red demon directly in front of him. A terrifying power suddenly exploded, and half of the red demon's body was directly dented. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. What kind of intermediate hanging fisher is this? Damn it, he's even stronger than a peak-level hanging fisher. Plus the 2 people who came to capture Han Fei, there were a total of 8 human powerhouses. Among these 8 people, only one had 5 stars, and the others all had 6 stars. And who else could move freely on the sea except for slaughterers? This was the title that came after completing the 100 slaughter, and it represented strength. Even the remaining 5-star powerhouses were probably trying to break through to the 6-star rank. The 8 people in the sea were almost equivalent to the combat power of 8 peak-level hanging fishers. For a time, the inferior manfish could only be slaughtered. However, in his perception, Han Fei found that a half-mermaid had already appeared. At this moment, it was sprinting towards him. Oh! Han Fei grabbed a harpoon with one hand, stretched out his hand, and the fist mark directly blew up the head of a red demon. With a wave of his hand, the golden seal was taken back, and a big seal phantom slapped on the chest of another red demon. Boom! Han Fei gritted his teeth. He glanced at the 8 people who came to help, especially at the 2 who came to capture him, and decided to continue fighting. Of the 4 red demons, only one was left. Han Fei punched dozens of times in a row, bombarding it like a madman. The energy in his body poured out and directly blasted 7 or 8 holes in the associated spirit of the red demon. Boom. When the last golden fist mark burst out, a strange power seemed to be merging with the fist mark. Swish. The fist mark blasted through the seawater, and in the next second, the red demon directly exploded. Han Fei looked down at his fist and seemed to feel a little bit better. Someone was shocked and couldn't help but say, "What a brave warrior." The 4th chapter. Just 4 chapters today. Please vote. I didn't count the number of chapters before. The estimated number of chapters this month is more than 400,000. It's not slow, it's definitely not slow. In the previous era of online literature, there were no such things as 10,000 chapters a day. Blood Red started this era. End of this chapter. Chapter 719. Han Fei grabbed another ball of candle dragon blood and stuffed it into his mouth. This was the 5th time he had drunk candle dragon blood. He finally knew why the unknown place was so dangerous. How could it not be dangerous? The outer sea was almost the back garden of the sea demons, and the inferior manfish were almost endless. When someone perceived the half-mermaids, he immediately said to Han Fei, "Boy, are you crazy? Are you practicing your combat skills here? Do you know that if you wait any longer, you won't be able to leave when there are too many half-mermaids?" Han Fei thought quickly. He miscalculated the number of sea demons, and some people had already arrived. If he continued to practice the art of invincibility, it might raise doubts. Immediately, Han Fei rushed straight to the sea like a torpedo from bottom to top. Han Fei said, "Thank you for your help. By the way, I will not return to the Scattered Stars Island." The 2 6-star powerhouses flew directly to Han Fei. "Han Fei, it's not your place to find someone." Han Fei sneered. "If you had the ability, you wouldn't have let Xia Xiaochan run away. It's not that I look down on you, but no one can find her except me." One of them said, "The waist tag has the ability to locate you." Han Fei asked, "Can you locate me now?" As soon as Han Fei said this, the man was speechless. Yes, they couldn't locate Han Fei. In fact, they were not fools. Then, if he lost his waist tag, how would he be able to locate him? The other people who came to help all looked weird. Fuck, should we intervene or not? Another person who came to capture Han Fei said, "Everyone, please take action and catch Han Fei. Don't worry, this guy is not guilty of a serious crime. He just lost his mind in an emergency." Han Fei said angrily, "I'm very sober. Don't force me to fight you." Everyone was speechless. "There are 8 of us. Are we afraid of you fighting us?" When they confronted each other in the air, 3 half-mermaids jumped out of the water. In the distance, 2 half-mermaids also jumped out of the water. Coming out with them were 5 or 6 red demons and hundreds of inferior manfish. Everyone's face changed. The 6 killers were not going to participate in this matter. On the one hand, they had witnessed Han Fei's slaughter. This kind of genius must have an extraordinary background. It wouldn't do him any good to offend him. Moreover, this kid had insulted the law enforcement team right in front of them. With such a fiery temper, was there a need for him to go up and beat him? What if he bore a grudge against me in the future? Immediately, someone shouted, "Let's go. Don't wait for them to form a blockade. It'll be too late if we don't leave now." These people directly controlled the fishing boat to soar into the sky. The fishing boat accelerated. Seeing that the others had left, the 2 members of the law enforcement group couldn't help but curse inwardly, "A bunch of fish demons." However, it was not a good time to catch Han Fei, so the 2 of them immediately controlled the fishing boat and prepared to escape first. However, when their fishing boats suddenly soared into the sky, the half-mermaids and red demons on the sea suddenly flew up. Han Fei was stunned by this scene. Fuck, they can fly too? Yes, Han Fei saw that there seemed to be a water skateboard under the feet of the half-mermaid and the red demon, which looked like a surfboard. They actually flew on this skateboard. Of course, those inferior manfish didn't have this ability. They could only run on the sea, condensing spiritual energy spears in their hands and shooting at Han Fei. The people of the law enforcement group shouted, Han Fei, let's escape from the sea demons first. You don't know anything. How can you set foot in the outer sea now? With that, the two of them rushed away. However, while they were rushing away, there were also half-mermaids chasing them, but Han Fei didn't care about them. 5 half-mermaids were flying on skateboards and rushing towards him. Among them, several had even used the Sea King's secret technique. Han Fei spat. Surfing against my wind god boat? In the next moment, the wind god boat rushed out in a red light and disappeared into the sky. Bam! Like a thunderclap, a cone-shaped cloud wrapped the wind god boat, broke through the sound barrier in the blink of an eye, and flashed away like a meteor across the sky. Those half-mermaids watched this group of people fly away in all directions and let out unwilling roars. At this moment, Han Fei really understood why hanging fishers were called hanging fishers. As long as he could fly in the sky, the sea demons could do nothing to him. This was the invincible position. Half-mermaids dominated the sea, but they couldn't fly until they became hidden fishers. Although they could condense skateboards by some means, they couldn't fly. Although the speed of the skateboard was also fast, it was much slower than human fishing boats. This was why hanging fishers were so confident to patrol in the air. However, there were also flaws. If a hanging fisher wanted to wander in the outer sea of the unknown place, he had to rely on fishing boats. Once the fishing boat was damaged and hanging fishers couldn't fly, if they didn't have excellent concealment skills, there would only be one result: being surrounded and killed by fish tides and sea demons. In fact, Han Fei only flew thousands of kilometers away before he jumped into the water again. Daughter, can you still feel your mommy's position? Because the pursuit couldn't be sustained, when the trace disappeared, it was difficult for Little White to find it for a while. After a full half an hour, Little White seemed to have reconfirmed the direction. Han Fei walked out of the array, glanced around, and guessed in his heart. If Xia Xiaochan ran into the deep sea by herself, it would be almost impossible for her to break through the sea demon's back garden. Therefore, Han Fei still believed that Xia Xiaochan should be in the gate of the hexagon starfish at this moment. It was a pity that he didn't fully stimulate the fighting intent of the art of invincibility just now, which was why he was in a dilemma now. Since his fighting spirit had been exhausted, he probably wouldn't be able to activate it in a short time. So, Han Fei set up a stealth array for himself and Little White, and then slowly swam on the bottom of the sea. Han Fei didn't kill the inferior manfish. He had tried it once just now. If he was really besieged, it was almost impossible to break out of the encirclement by force. Since he couldn't be reckless, he could only use his wits. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. If only he could become a fish, then he wouldn't have to be so careful not to be discovered by the sea demons. However, Han Fei immediately burst into tears. If he became a fish, wouldn't he become a sea demon? He'd better be a human being. If he became a sea demon, he would be the enemy of all mankind. Han Fei slowly moved, and it took him a full 8 hours to completely walk out of the sea demon's encirclement. During this period, Han Fei entered Forge the Universe several times to avoid being tracked. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. I'm still too weak. If only I could have 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid. If only I could have a few 100 million more points of spiritual energy. 2 days later. Chomp! Han Fei swallowed a spiritual fruit in 2 bites. In the past 2 days, Han Fei had almost never taken the spiritual fruit away from his hand. One was to heal his wounds, and the other was to store spiritual energy. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't directly use the spiritual fruit as spiritual energy, which was too wasteful. Han Fei occasionally fed spiritual energy to Little White. After all, unlike him, Little White first had to deal with the conflicts of spiritual energy caused by different spiritual fruits. Only after stabilizing these could the spiritual energy be completely his. In addition, in the past 2 days, Han Fei had encountered more than once powerful exotic creatures and tried to catch them twice. One time, he was discovered and ran away. The other time, he attracted an inferior manfish, so he could only run away. Now, Han Fei watched a big crab with a whole body like jade running past him, but he couldn't move. Because it was with this big crab that he avoided the half-mermaid above his head. Son of a bitch, it's been 2 days. Why haven't you given up yet? These sea demons are too stubborn, aren't they? Didn't I just kill one of your squads? When the half-mermaid above his head swam away, Han Fei slowly breathed a sigh of relief and asked Little White to continue to lead the way. However, after swimming for more than 300 kilometers, Little White stopped swimming. Han Fei took a closer look and found that he had run to a place full of sea-leaping grass. This place was covered with seaweed, and Han Fei perceived that 800 meters away from him, there was a green octopus hiding in the seaweed. He saw colorful sea urchins lying on the seaweed. And some stones were actually crabs in disguise. In such a place, Han Fei suddenly had an idea. He found something different. There was something wrong with the flow of spiritual energy here. The amount of spiritual energy contained in the sea rattan grass has decreased? No, a lot of spiritual energy has dissipated. Why doesn't the sea rattan grass absorb it? A defensive array? No, it's a maze. Although Han Fei wasn't as proficient in arrays now, it was much better than before. He found that someone had set up a maze here by extracting the spiritual energy of the sea rattan grass. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. Good Lord, I finally found it. Chapter 720. Han Fei didn't destroy the maze. In his eyes, the eyes of true vision finally found an extremely inconspicuous array eye according to the way the spiritual energy flowed. When Han Fei stood in the array eye, the array itself didn't respond. Han Fei grinned. The hexagon starfish was indeed very good at setting up arrays. Ordinary people would think that this array was set up a long time ago and had long been abandoned if there was no abnormality after finding the array eye. But Xiaobai was here, so Han Fei knew that the hexagon starfish must be below. After half an hour, Han Fei discovered that this was a stacked array. The outer maze was just a camouflage, and the real array turned out to be the location of those sea vine grasses. When Han Fei smashed a sea vine grass, another array eye was exposed. Swish! Han Fei appeared directly in a secret realm from the sea vine grasses. To Han Fei's surprise, this secret realm was full of spiritual energy, there was even a spiritual spring gathering, and there were many purple crystals protruding from the ground, as if he had walked into a prehistoric underground cave. Master Hexagon, I'm here. Han Fei perceived and found that in this small secret realm with a radius of less than 3,000 meters, a piece of sand was shaking and a tentacle emerged from the ground. Han Fei's tightened heart was immediately relaxed. Sure enough, they were here. Fortunately, nothing happened. The hexagon starfish climbed out of the sand and shouted at Han Fei, I'm going to retire here. I'm not going to go out. Han Fei was speechless. Why are you going to retire? If this array is broken, you will be caught like a turtle in a jar. At that time, you will be dead. Where is Xia Xiaochun? Tell her to come out. Is she hurt? Han Fei glanced at the hexagon starfish and suddenly said, Huh, you actually broke through, and you even broke through 3 levels in a row? Before Han Fei asked in detail, he saw the hexagon starfish's body stiffen, and then with a swish, it wanted to run to the entrance of the cave. Han Fei was already holding a stone in his hand. Don't you want your essence blood? However, the smile on Han Fei's face had disappeared. Why is the hexagon starfish running? The hexagon starfish, however, said pitifully, I didn't lose her, but she left me behind. It has nothing to do with starfish. Han Fei's face had completely darkened. Come here. Tell me, where is Xia Xiaochun? Why aren't you two together? The hexagon starfish floated in the water resignedly. She turned into a crab and ran away. What? Han Fei was dumbfounded. What do you mean by turning into a crab and running away? The hexagon starfish nodded. She turned into a big crab and ran away. Xia Xiaochun turned into a big crab? Seeing the hexagon starfish's confirmation, Han Fei frowned. Xia Xiaochun must have turned herself into a crab with the metamorphosis water. Han Fei walked over and dragged the hexagon starfish to him. Tell me, what happened in the undersea chimney? What could the hexagon starfish do? It didn't know how Han Fei found it. Anyway, It was scared out of its wits and ran to this place without knowing why. The hexagon starfish said, "It's a fight. They go out to fight every day." This time, they went to grab the spirit awakening fluid and then they fought. Han Fei was stunned. "Tell me, what do you mean by fighting? Who fought who?" The hexagon starfish said, "Xia Xiaochan first fought with fish, then with mermaids, and then with humans. Then, Xia Xiaochan went crazy and fought everyone she saw. Fortunately, she didn't fight starfish. Otherwise, I would have been a dead starfish now." Han Fei's face was black. It's normal to fight with fish and mermaids. But why did she suddenly fight with others? The hexagon starfish's big eyes rolled. There was a woman who seemed to have sprinkled something on Xia Xiaochan, and then she went crazy. Han Fei's heart trembled. "Tell me, which woman? What did she sprinkle on Xia Xiaochan?" Han Fei had a bad feeling in his heart. Xia Xiaochan's illness was not caused by the spirit awakening fluid, but by someone else? The first person that came to Han Fei's mind was the woman named Shui Ran. She was Xia Xiaochan's captain and one of the team leaders this time. She was most likely to attack Xia Xiaochan. The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes and said, "Women all look the same. I can't tell them apart." Han Fei said coldly, "I'll give you another chance to organize your words. Which woman was it?" The hexagon starfish was anxious. "I don't know her. I only know that the woman she had a finger cut off by Xia Xiaochan." Well, suddenly, around Han Fei's body, a wave of water shook outward. Yang? Han Fei suddenly remembered that when he broke into the Dark Hunter Legion a few days ago, only Gong Wenhai and Yang Ying were left in Xia Xiaochan's team except for Captain Shui Ran. At that time, Yang Ying raised her hand to show Han Fei that her little finger was cut off by Xia Xiaochan. At first, Han Fei thought that Gong Wenhai slandered Xia Xiaochan because he couldn't get her, but Gong Wenhai didn't like her. But now it seemed that it wasn't the case at all. Yang Ying had framed Xia Xiaochan. But weren't they all from the Dark Hunter Legion? Why did she frame Xia Xiaochan? Han Fei immediately asked. "Then do you know why that woman attacked you?" The starfish immediately rolled its eyes. I don't know. Han Fei had been staring at the hexagon starfish. He had been with the hexagon starfish for a long time. Once the starfish tried to think, its eyes would roll. At this moment, its big eyes were spinning faster than a top. Immediately, Han Fei pinched its essence blood. "Master Hexagon, a lying starfish is not a good starfish." The hexagon starfish was almost crying. "Oh, maybe Xia Xiaochan robbed some spirit awakening fluid and I helped her put it away." Han Fei frowned. It was extremely unscientific that the hexagon starfish had leveled up by 3 levels in a row. As mysterious creatures, Little Black and Little White had drunk a lot of spirit awakening fluid, but they hadn't reached level 40 yet. However, the hexagon starfish suddenly jumped from level 43 to level 46. This speed was even faster than a rocket. Whether it was Little Gold, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, or Little Fatty, after level 38, hundreds of kilograms of spirit awakening fluid couldn't help them improve. The hexagon starfish was level 43 before. How much spirit awakening fluid did this guy swallow to level 46? Han Fei looked awkward. "You mean that woman was jealous that Xia Xiaochan robbed a lot of spirit awakening fluid, so she attacked her?" The hexagon starfish shrugged. "I don't know. Anyway, she just did it." A cold smile appeared on the corner of Han Fei's mouth. He just didn't like Gong Wenhai and thought that if he met him at sea in the future, he would kill that guy. But now, Yang Ying was also on his death list, and she ranked first. However, Han Fei had no time to deal with Yang Ying now. That woman probably had only 2 choices. One was to pray that he couldn't find Xia Xiaochan or that she died outside, and the other was to slip away while he was not on the Scattered Stars Island. At this moment, Han Fei's top priority was to continue looking for Xia Xiaochan. Since the hexagon starfish said that Xia Xiaochan turned into a crab and ran away, it meant that her condition should be stable. Han Fei asked, "How did you get here? Did Xia Xiaochan turn into a crab and bring you here? When did Xia Xiaochan stop going crazy?" This time, The hexagon starfish answered very smoothly. It said, "She just had an attack for a while. After fighting a lot, she passed out. After she passed out, I put her into a gate. Then she was chased by a group of sea demons for a long time, and then I came here." Han Fei was surprised. "You brought her here? Then when did she turn into a crab and run away?" The hexagon starfish said, "After she woke up, she turned into a crab. In the form of a crab, she stayed here for a day and said that she wanted to go out and have a look. Starfish certainly didn't want to go out. Then she never came back." "No, wait a minute. You said that after Xia Xiaochan woke up, she turned into a crab? It's so safe here. Why did she turn into a crab?" The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes. "I don't know." Han Fei really wanted to slap the hexagon starfish. "What the hell do you know? Drink the spirit awakening fluid. You don't know anything else." Han Fei immediately stared at the hexagon starfish. "Hand over the spirit awakening fluid." The hexagon starfish's eyes stiffened, and it immediately rolled its eyes. "Starfish has already drunk it. There's nothing left." Han Fei sneered. "Then open the door and let me in and have a look." Of course, the hexagon starfish refused. However, Han Fei grabbed it with one hand. "Do you want to become a pentagon starfish?" "Hey, the spirit awakening fluid was snatched by Xia Xiaochan. No matter how much I give you, it's just for temporary safekeeping. But you secretly drank tens of thousands of caddies, and now you want to keep it all to yourself?" Starfish didn't drink tens of thousands of caddies. Han Fei asked, "If it's not tens of thousands of caddies, can you break through 3 levels in a row?" The hexagon starfish's big eyes kept rolling. Starfish only drank more than 10,000 caddies. Damn it. Han Fei really wanted to slap this guy to death. Damn it, only drank more than 10,000 caddies? Don't you think it's enough? Han Fei said coldly, "I'll count to 3. Are you going to take it or not?" Chapter 721. The hexagon starfish compromised. It knew that the spirit awakening fluid couldn't be stored anymore, but it didn't expect Han Fei to come so soon. Otherwise, if it was given a few more days, it might be able to break through to level 47. At that time, it would definitely become a powerful starfish. The hexagon starfish took out 2,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei was furious. "Are you kidding me? Give it all to me." The hexagon starfish said aggrievedly, "There are only 2,000 caddies left." Han Fei sneered. "Dishonest starfish, do you think you have too many claws? You drank more than 10,000 caddies and I didn't care about it. Now you tell me that you only have 2,000 caddies left?" Under Han Fei's repeated coercion, Han Fei even went to the hexagon starfish sect and finally confirmed that there was no more left. In total, he dug out 2,900 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei was speechless. If he had come one day later, the spirit awakening fluid would have been gone. This starfish was really good at drinking. However, this also indirectly confirmed Han Fei's guess that an undersea chimney must contain a lot of spirit awakening fluid. Xia Xiaochan alone grabbed more than 20,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. How terrifying was this? More than 20,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. More than 100 million points of credit were almost drunk by the hexagon starfish. Han Fei asked, "When did Xia Xiaochan leave?" The hexagon starfish nodded. "Yesterday." "How much spirit awakening fluid did she take with her?" The hexagon starfish rolled his eyes. "She didn't take a caddy with her. She said she left it all to me. So, this spirit awakening fluid belongs to the starfish." Han Fei sneered. "I'll confiscate the rest." The hexagon starfish. With a flash between Han Fei's eyebrows, little black and little white appeared. Without saying a word, Han Fei directly threw 400 caddies of spirit awakening fluid at them. As a result, the luster on little white and little black became stronger, but they still failed to break through. So Han Fei threw another 500 caddies of spirit awakening fluid to them. This time, when little white swallowed 300 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, He broke through and finally reached level 39. Han Fei's eyes lit up. Under the eager gaze of the hexagon starfish, the remaining 2,200 caddies of spirit awakening fluid were all fed to Little White. This made Little White look even more holy and pure. However, he still couldn't break through to the next level, as if he was stuck at a bottleneck. The hexagon starfish said, This should be a major bottleneck. I don't think the spirit awakening fluid is enough. But Han Fei slapped the hexagon starfish to the ground. Don't be greedy. Will you die if you keep more? Han Fei felt it was a pity. He wondered how much spirit awakening fluid was needed for a contractual spiritual beast to make a breakthrough. However, as mysterious creatures, Little Black and Little White were extremely powerful, so they might need more spirit awakening fluid. Seeing that he couldn't make a breakthrough, he gave up. After all, it was only his third day at sea. No matter how rich the resources in the ocean were, it was impossible to become fat in a day or two. Han Fei believed that even if Little Black and Little White hadn't made a breakthrough yet, they wouldn't be far from it. He would find a way to get more spirit awakening fluid for these two little guys to make breakthroughs first. As for Little Fatty and the others, they could just wait. Unless he could get another 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid, he probably wouldn't be able to make it. Han Fei grabbed the hexagon starfish and pressed it on his shoulder. Let's go find Xia Xiaochan. The hexagon starfish was about to cry. I don't want to go. It's too dangerous outside. I think I can stay here. Han Fei said fiercely, Bullshit. If you stay here, you will be dug out by others sooner or later. At this moment, Han Fei was full of doubts. Xia Xiaochan didn't even take a kilogram of spirit awakening fluid with her and turned into a crab. Where did she go? Since she had escaped, if Xia Xiaochan wanted to return to the Scattered Stars Island, she could easily do so. After all, Xia Xiaochan also had a wind god boat. Besides, if Xia Xiaochan wanted to go back, she couldn't go without the hexagon starfish. And why did Xia Xiaochan leave the spirit awakening fluid to the hexagon starfish? She knew that Little White had the ability to track, so Han Fei would definitely chase after her if he knew that she didn't return to the Scattered Stars Island. Therefore, Xia Xiaochan probably wanted to leave this batch of spirit awakening fluid to him, right? Immediately, Han Fei suddenly whipped the hexagon starfish. When Xia Xiaochan left, did she ask you to give this batch of spirit awakening fluid to me? The hexagon starfish clenched his claws and rolled his big eyes. No, she said it was for me. Seeing the hexagon starfish's reaction, Han Fei had already understood. He sneered. Okay, dishonest starfish, the labor contract will be renewed for 10 years. Just wait to sell yourself. The hexagon starfish felt wronged. She really left it to me. Han Fei didn't listen to its explanation and just said lightly, If you can still find her, you can drink this bit of spirit awakening fluid and I won't ask you for more. If you can't find her, I tell you, you are doomed. Han Fei knew that something must have happened to Xia Xiaochan. He didn't know what exactly happened, but something must have happened. Because of this, she chose not to return to the Scattered Stars Island. However, although Xia Xiaochan was not weak, the outer domain of the Scattered Stars Island was full of dangers. Only Han Fei himself knew how hard it had been during the 3 days he had been out. It was many times more dangerous than the level 3 fishery. Little White was looking for a direction and swimming slowly. Han Fei was not in a hurry. Now that Xia Xiaochan was cured, no one could catch her. With the all things water in her body, Xia Xiaochan could become anything she wanted. Since Xia Xiaochan's safety was not a big problem, Han Fei was not so anxious. He planned to find her while honing himself. However, Han Fei didn't know that on the Scattered Stars Island, many people had already exploded. The first to explode was Zhang Xuanyu. He flew up and kicked Lu Renquang. You damn fatty, why didn't you call me? Are you fucking my brother? Why did you just let Han Fei go to the outer sea alone? I'm so pissed off. Lu Renquang felt wronged. Even if we go, the outer sea is indeed too big a target. Luo Xiaobai had just returned and was the calmest one at this moment. Don't worry, it shouldn't be a big problem. At least senior brother Dashui said that Han Fei killed a lot of sea demons, which is all credit. The charges of breaking into the Dark Hunter Legion and leaving the island should be offset. Zhang Xuanyu said angrily, "The question is Xia Xiaochan alright?" Everyone's heart sank. They really didn't know. In the Dark Hunter Legion, according to Gong Wenhai and Yang Ying's hints, it seemed that Xia Xiaochan killed someone and fled. However, Luo Xiaobai and the others certainly didn't believe it. Luo Xiaobai said, "Keep an eye on Gong Wenhai, Yang Ying, and Shui Ran. If one of them maliciously spreads this rumor, he will be the most suspicious." The Twisted Jungle. Jiang Qin frowned. "Do you want me to look for them?" Old Jiang shook his head. "No need. The life tablets of the 5 of them are now with me, and they are all fine. As for why they don't come back, what if they don't want to come back?" Jiang Qin said, "But it's too dangerous. Their current strength is not enough to dominate the outer sea of the Scattered Stars Island." Old Jiang sneered. "Don't worry, they are all cunning. If something happens, they won't just wait to die. Besides, the outer sea is so big. Even if you go looking for them in person, it won't be easy for you to find them." Jiang Qin rolled her eyes. "Can't you find them yourself?" Old Jiang shook his head again. "You can't find them, but I can? Unless they are killed by the dying strike. At that time, I will know where they are. Besides, if I go out, Shueishenqi won't just sit by and do nothing." Scattered Stars Prison. Zhang Teng's face was dark, and he looked at the jailers. "Still no news about that kid?" A jailer smiled bitterly. "Boss, that kind of heavenly talent can't be judged by common sense. A guy who can hone his combat skills amidst hundreds and thousands of sea demons is simply a lunatic." Zhang Teng spat. "Fuck, I knew that everyone in the Thug Academy is a troublemaker. Now that the dragon has returned to the sea, there's no way to find him. Withdraw all the people." "Withdraw." The jailers looked at each other. "Are we not going to chase him?" Zhang Teng said hatefully, "If we can't find him, how can we chase him? Does the Scattered Stars prison look so free?" Central city of the Scattered Stars Island. Inside a certain palace, a gentle-looking young man was looking at a huge sea map. On this sea map, the Scattered Stars Island was just a palm-sized place. On the map, there were no less than 1,000 places marked in a mess. Someone respectfully knelt on one knee. "Commander, Xia Xiaochan and Han Fei are gone." This person was the famous Supreme Commander of the Scattered Stars Island, Shueishenqi. However, Shueishenqi's face didn't change at all, and his eyes were still staring at the sea map. After a long time, he said lightly, "Okay. For old Zhang's sake, I'll let this matter go. By the way, where is Tanggu?" "Commander, Tanggu wants to go to sea, but he has been intercepted." Shueishenqi nodded. "Let him go. Just keep an eye on him and don't let him leave the island." After a long time, Shueishenqi murmured, "Han Fei, Jiang Daqian, the Thug Academy. Han Guanshu, what on earth are you planning? Everyone is in the trap, but what is the history of Xia Xiaochan and Tanggu? You have been hiding for more than 30 years. What's your purpose?" The 3rd chapter. Asking for votes. Adding chapters. Later. Excluding dinner time. Update at 7 or 8 o'clock. End of this chapter. Chapter 722. 3 days later. Han Fei had gone 30,000 kilometers deep into the open sea, and the creatures he encountered were getting stronger and stronger. First of all, there were more and more exotic creatures. This made Han Fei exclaim. In the past, encountering an exotic creature in the level 3 fishery was like winning the lottery. But nowadays, exotic creatures were running everywhere. Almost every 1,000 miles, and sometimes even every few hundred miles, there would be one. Sometimes, he could even encounter them in groups. However, Han Fei hadn't found a creature with a higher quality than exotic creatures so far. It seemed that the exotic creatures were already the best here. After a few days, the number of inferior manfish and other sea demons that were searching for Han Fei had decreased a lot. Today, Han Fei swam for a long time but didn't find a single inferior manfish. Did the inferior manfish go to a gathering? Or did they go to worship the sea god? This doesn't make sense. The hexagon starfish said, the nearby creatures have become stronger. Let's go back to the island. Han Fei scoffed. Don't you find that little white is swimming slower and slower now? She must have found Xia Xiaochan's location. Let's find her first. About half an hour later, Han Fei's eyes suddenly lit up. He sensed a canyon. It was very deep, and little white was heading in that direction. However, when Han Fei came to this canyon, his face changed. The spiritual energy here was chaotic, and there was blood everywhere. It should have just been a battle. Han Fei had no time to think about it and rushed into the canyon. The seawater here was quite turbid, which should be the dust and sand on the bottom of the sea, rolled up in the battle. Besides, above the canyon, there were several cliffs, and sand flowed into the canyon like waterfalls, which could be called a sand waterfall. Before he reached the bottom of the canyon, Han Fei's perception had swept all the areas within 40 kilometers. He found that the bottom of the canyon was like a desert. There were more than 20 inferior manfish and red demons scattered, and 3 half-mermaids died on the spot. This was just above the sand sea. Dozens of meters below the sand sea, Han Fei also found several red demons' corpses. Going deeper, Han Fei couldn't perceive them easily. Although his perception range was large, it was extremely difficult to sense something that needed to penetrate matter. Penetrating the sandy ground for dozens of meters was still manageable. If there was a huge space underground that wasn't sealed, it would be easy. However, if there was sand and rocks all the way down, it would be extremely difficult. For example, at this moment, Han Fei's perception penetrated no more than 20 meters into the sea of sand, and he felt that the penetration was exponentially more difficult. Han Fei didn't think that Xia Xiaochan would hide so deeply, so he rushed all the way down. When Han Fei passed by a red demon, he saw a harpoon lying not far away and couldn't help but wonder. He patted it casually and a sea-swallowing seashell was slapped out. Why didn't you put it away? Is there nothing in it? With a thought, Han Fei scanned the sea-swallowing seashell, only to find that there were still a few kilograms of spirit awakening fluid and more than 30 ultra-quality materials in it. They were quite valuable. Han Fei glanced at Little White. Daughter, are you sure Xia Xiaochan is here? Han Fei frowned. This doesn't make sense. Xia Xiaochan was the same as him. They were both greedy people. It didn't make sense that after killing so many red demons and half-mermaids, she didn't even want their sea-swallowing seashells. The inferior manfish Han Fei just took out 10 sea-swallowing seashells from the red demons and half-mermaids. Among them, the half-mermaids also contributed 510 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid, more than 5,000 kilograms of spiritual spring, and more than 30 mid-quality and low-quality spiritual stones. This time, it had been several days since the battle for the undersea chimney. Besides, it was too far away from the undersea chimney, so it was understandable that there was little spirit awakening fluid. However, Han Fei wasn't happy at all. Xia Xiaochan killed the sea demons without taking their sea-swallowing seashells. There were only 2 possibilities. First, Xia Xiaochan had no time or opportunity to take these sea-swallowing seashells at that time. That meant that there were still sea demons chasing her. If it was the first possibility, Han Fei was confident that Xia Xiaochan could avoid it. But if it was the second possibility, Han Fei thought for a while. What if these sea demons and sea-swallowing seashells were all left by Xia Xiaochan? Han Fei knew that Xia Xiaochan didn't want the spirit awakening fluid. That was because if she used the spirit awakening fluid, Xia Xiaochan wouldn't be able to suppress her realm and would easily get sick. However, if these sea demons were really left by Xia Xiaochan, then Xia Xiaochan must have known that he was chasing her. Besides, she also knew that he was nearby. Otherwise, she wouldn't have grasped the timing so well and let him finish the job. It had been less than half an hour since these sea demons died. If he chased them now, he should be able to catch up with them. Han Fei immediately touched Little White's head. Let's keep chasing. Han Fei didn't need to think about it. If so many sea demons died at once, they would definitely be alarmed. If it was just the inferior manfish and red demons, it would be fine, but there were even half-mermaids here. It was hard to say whether they had life tablets or not. After all, Han Fei didn't know the living environment of sea demons. Did they have a rear base? Did they also have a sea demon city? Han Fei didn't know. If they did, the half-mermaids should be considered heavenly talents and should have life tablets. Otherwise, when he killed more than a dozen sea demons a few days ago, he wouldn't have been caught. This time, Han Fei didn't slow down but rushed all the way, sprinting with Little White again. However, after rushing for more than 500 kilometers, they encountered 2 half-mermaids and 3 red demons. As for the inferior manfish, they didn't see any of them. Fuck! Han Fei cursed secretly. I just want to find them in peace. Han Fei said to them via voice transmission, "Don't get in the way. I'm not interested in fighting you." However, the half-mermaids didn't care about this. They roared, "Kill!" Han Fei's eyes turned cold and he activated the majestic mystic spell. At this time, he was not interested in honing the art of invincibility, so he killed them directly so that he could continue to chase Xia Xiaochan. Little Fatty and Little Gold attached to him, and he slashed at a red demon with the draw technique. Although the red demon's reaction was extremely fast, its battle suit and harpoon were broken. It was not even qualified to block Han Fei's blow. After all, Han Fei was no longer what he used to be. The strength of an intermediate peak-level hanging fisher was not much different from that of an advanced or even peak-level hanging fisher. Besides, the red demon was not a peak-level red demon, so it was natural that it was cut in half. Holding the golden seal, Han Fei collided head-on with a half-mermaid. At the moment of the collision, a weird smile appeared on his face. Within a radius of 300 meters, the infinity water turned into knives and swept over. The next moment, the 10,000 knives in one burst out. Infinity water plus the 10,000 knives in one, there were really knives everywhere. He didn't give these sea demons a chance to escape at all. White flames ignited on the half-mermaids' bodies. Among them, a half-mermaid discovered the horror of Han Fei and tried to escape. In the end, a small golden seal was thrown at him. The terrifying power directly bombarded him to the seabed. Smoke and dust filled the air in an instant, and with the explosion of Han Fei's golden fist mark, these 2 half-mermaids and 3 red demons were all killed in less than 10 minutes. Putting away their harpoons and sea-swallowing seashells, Han Fei continued to rush forward. However, after chasing for less than 100 kilometers, Little White suddenly stopped and then looked at Han Fei in confusion. Han Fei asked, "What's the matter, daughter? Is this the place?" Han Fei looked around. This was an ordinary seabed, full of seabed sand, and there were not many plants around. Except for some reefs on the seabed, there was nothing else. But the next moment, Little White responded, "Xia Xiaochan's aura disappeared." Disappeared? Han Fei couldn't believe it. What method did Xia Xiaochan use? Even Xiao Bai couldn't catch up to her. However, Han Fei couldn't stop. There had been 2 battles here, and if there were no accidents, other sea demons would come after a while. Han Fei immediately said to the hexagon starfish, "Open the door. I'll go in." The hexagon starfish was surprised. "Starfish, don't run by yourself." Han Fei scolded, "Find a place, set up an array, and hide." When Han Fei came out again, the inferior manfish appeared in his perception again. Yes, the sea demons were alert again. This made it 10 times more difficult for him to find Xia Xiaochan. As a result, the search process was back to square one again. One day later, Little White found the direction where Xia Xiaochan was again. Han Fei searched for her for more than half a month. During this period, Han Fei finally confirmed one thing. Xia Xiaochan was fucking playing hide and seek with him. Every time he was about to find her, Han Fei could always find that there had been a battle. A large number of half-mermaids and red demons were killed or wounded, and their sea-swallowing seashells and weapons were left to him. This kind of thing happened almost every 3 days. Why is this happening? Han Fei was confused. He had no idea what Xia Xiaochan's purpose was. The same thing happened. The sea demons were also confused. Every few days, a batch of sea demons would die, and every few days, another batch would die, and no one would be able to find them. in a certain underwater mountain range. A half-mermaid said coldly, "This must be the track of human beings. They want to disturb our rear camp. This time, 12 sea demons will lead the team. Dig her out for me." Okay, that's all for today. Take a break. I'll continue to write tomorrow's chapter. Since you can't go out during the new year, take a rest. It seems that many schools have delayed classes for 10 days. Read more and sleep more. End of this chapter. Chapter 723. In the past half a month, Han Fei had collected a lot of good things. He used to eat spiritual fruits every day, but now he didn't even need to eat spiritual fruits. Just picking up garbage behind Xia Xiaochan, he had picked up a huge amount of spiritual spring and a small number of spiritual stones. Han Fei roughly calculated. Plus the spiritual energy he had stored before and the ones he picked up recently, he had 70 million points of spiritual energy. Among them, the spiritual spring alone accounted for 28 million points of spiritual energy, nearly 30,000 caddies. By eating spiritual fruits, he had 24 million points of spiritual energy. And with his own spiritual stones and the spiritual stones he picked up, he had 20 million points of spiritual energy in total. In this way, he was not far from accumulating 100 million points of spiritual energy. However, in addition to the spiritual spring, Han Fei picked up very little spirit awakening fluid. In the past half a month, he had picked up less than 1,500 caddies in total after 7 or 8 times. The more he picked up, the less he got. In the last 2 times, he didn't even see 1 caddy. Han Fei had every reason to believe that those sea demons had become smart. Now when he went out, he either drank up the precious spirit awakening fluid or didn't take it with him. Han Fei thought, it's unlikely that they didn't take it with them. Who would leave such a precious thing at home? Besides, whether the sea demons had a home or not was still a problem. Therefore, there was an 80% chance that they drank it themselves. Han Fei stuffed a spiritual fruit into his mouth. He had to continue to eat spiritual fruits. Now he didn't even have 100 million points of spiritual energy directly available. If he needed to deduce a cultivation technique, it wouldn't even be enough. In fact, this time Han Fei came out with the idea of deducing a cultivation technique before going back. Suddenly, Han Fei felt dozens of surging waves shuttling from the front at an incredible speed. Han Fei subconsciously withdrew his perception and immediately cast a concealment array and a breath concealing array on himself. Han Fei shouted, "Master Hexagon, hurry up, set up an array and hide us. There's no time to get into the door." The hexagon starfish shuddered and covered Han Fei with a concealment array. Han Fei threw out a series of concealment arrays, illusion water arrays, and a series of arrays that could quickly hide him. The hexagon starfish asked, "What's wrong?" Han Fei said, "Don't transmit your voice and don't move." A moment later, Han Fei sensed that the sea demons above his head were launching serial missiles. No, they were much faster than missiles. It was like the tail feathers of an airplane as it flew across the sky. There were hundreds of them. Han Fei was stunned. What's going on? Humans are at war with the sea demons? Han Fei didn't dare to release his perception. If he was noticed, it was almost impossible for him to escape unless he entered Forge the Universe. However, while Han Fei was watching this scene, a half-mermaid above suddenly stopped. A perception came over, and he quickly lowered his head, ready to enter Forge the Universe at any time. If worse came to worst, he could take Mr. Hexagon's starfish with him. Given the current situation, there was no way they could win. Those half-mermaids seemed to be extremely strong. Definitely more than level 50. A half-mermaid asked, "What's wrong? Is there something wrong?" Feeling the perception sweeping down, he could only hope that the illusion array of the hexagon starfish would work and not be discovered by these sea monsters. Otherwise, if he hid in Forge the Universe, he didn't know when he could come out. At this moment, at most 700 or 800 meters away from Han Fei, a sandstone shook. Immediately, a spear of spiritual energy shot down, and Han Fei saw a crab was directly pierced and exploded. Above, the half-mermaid who stopped said, "It's nothing." Maybe I was too suspicious. When the sea monsters rushed out again, Han Fei glanced at the hexagon starfish and then shook his head gently. The hexagon starfish nodded, indicating that it understood. Han Fei stood where he was for almost half an hour, and suddenly a half-mermaid came down from the sea. His perception quickly scanned this area, and after waiting for a few minutes, he really ran away. After another while, Han Fei felt that there should be no third search, so he said to the hexagon starfish via voice transmission, "Let's slow down and not rush around. I feel that we seem to have found the sea monster's nest." The hexagon starfish asked, "Why did Xia Xiaochan run to the sea monster's nest? Why don't we go back first? She will definitely go back by herself." Han Fei said, "Shut up. Now we are invisible. We may be hundreds of thousands of kilometers deep in the sea, and we can't even tell north from south. Do you think it's easy to go back? Keep looking." 3 hours later, the way Little White led became more and more strange. Han Fei saw a mountain range in the distance, and occasionally, some inferior manfish passed over his head. The number of marine plants in the vicinity began to increase, but the number of living creatures decreased, and the shoals of fish were even rarer. Han Fei immediately said, "Master Hexagon, something is wrong. I feel that we may have really come to the sea monster's base camp. The marine creatures didn't dare to approach, and the sea monsters frequently appeared here. Just now, the hundreds of half-mermaids at once must have slipped out from here." Master Hexagon's eyes kept rolling. "Then what should we do? Let's run. We can't beat the sea monster's base camp." Han Fei snorted. "Even if we can't beat them, we have to go there. No, we have to dig through the ground." Han Fei spread out his perception. Although there were inferior manfish within 40 kilometers, they couldn't detect him. Han Fei kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. "Dig a hole, the deeper, the better. Don't hammer, just dig." Digging a hole on the bottom of the sea was actually relatively simple. Generally, the soil on the bottom of the sea was relatively loose, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp could easily dig dozens of meters deep. Han Fei followed it to collect the soil, then sealed the hole, and asked the hexagon starfish to set up one array after another in the hole. The hexagon starfish asked, "Can it work?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes, Little White, show the way." Little White was on the nine-tailed mantis shrimp's head at this moment. Wherever Little White went, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp would dig. Although it was a little slow, Han Fei felt that he would rather be slow than take risks. But he didn't understand why Xia Xiaochan went to the sea monster's base camp. She must not have been caught by the sea monsters. But Han Fei didn't think so. Xia Xiaochan had been playing hide-and-seek with him for so long and asked him to clean up the battlefield. There was no reason that she would be caught. If she wasn't caught, she must have a reason to go to the sea monster's base camp. Digging more than 500 meters underground, it became more and more difficult. Although he hadn't dug to the mantle layer yet, there were already thick rocks. Han Fei took a look. At this depth, if he dug into the belly of the mountain, he shouldn't be found. He dug for a full 6 hours. Suddenly, Little Black, who had been following Han Fei, jumped out. In the muddy soil, he picked up a spiritual stone. "Han Fei?" Han Fei was speechless. "Wait, where did you pick it up?" This was a low-quality spiritual stone, containing 11,022 points of spiritual energy. But although it was a low-quality spiritual stone, it was still a spiritual stone. Where did Little White lead the nine-tailed mantis shrimp to? Han Fei said happily, "Excuse me, where did you dig?" Han Fei went up and took it, turned it over, and dug out another spiritual stone, which made Han Fei's eyelids twitch. "Wow, did you dig a spiritual stone mine?" He scanned with his perception and found that his perception could only go dozens of meters ahead. "Are you kidding me? My perception range of 40 kilometers can only go dozens of meters?" However, in these dozens of meters, Han Fei perceived more than a dozen low-quality spiritual stones. At that time, Han Fei was quite calm. If he picked up every single piece of the mountain, would he collapse the mountain? Han Fei had done this before. When he was in the level 1 fishery, Han Fei had collapsed the mine. If he collapsed the base of the sea demons, would he have a chance to run out alive? "No, I can't just leave them here." Han Fei couldn't refuse the spiritual stones when they were right in front of him. Just how much did he regard money as dirt? However, Han Fei didn't directly stuff them into Forge the Universe. Instead, he took out a big box from Forge the Universe. He picked up every piece he saw and asked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp to pull the box forward. Han Fei murmured, "As long as the spiritual energy doesn't disperse, it shouldn't collapse, right?" As a result, Han Fei dug deeper and deeper. When the nine-tailed mantis shrimp dug out layers of rocks, Han Fei found that he couldn't perceive anything above. He found that his perception was completely blocked and he was trapped in the belly of the mountain. Boom! At this moment, as soon as Han Fei picked up a high-quality spiritual stone, the road he had dug before collapsed. Han Fei? The hexagon starfish? The hexagon starfish asked, "Did you trap us in the stone pile?" Han Fei lowered his head and looked at the big box in his arms. "I don't think I dug much. Less than 100 yuan. There isn't even a piece of top-grade spirit stone. How did it collapse?" The hexagon starfish asked. "The problem now is, how do we get out?" Han Fei scratched his head. "I can't perceive anything above. Do you think they can perceive us?" Chapter 724. Han Fei was trapped in a space that was less than 10 square meters. There was no telling if it was because he didn't find anything earlier, but this was the only space left. The hexagon starfish asked, "Are we still digging?" Glancing at the box that wasn't full yet, Han Fei blinked and said, "Yes, keep digging." Han Fei was lost for words. Up until now, he had dug out the most low-grade spirit stones, 13 middle-grade spirit stones and 6 high-grade spirit stones. Just like that, the mountain collapsed? Han Fei was rather speechless about the mountain. "It's not even as good as my mine. I can even find some ultra-quality spiritual stones in my mine. Even if the mountain is going to collapse, you should at least let me dig some ultra-quality spiritual stones, right?" Outside, at the center of the mountain, boom! A half-mermaid rose quickly. "What's that sound?" A half-mermaid rushed in. "My lord, a small part of the strange stone mountain at the corner of the Sea Demon Mountain collapsed." "A small part collapsed? Why did it collapse?" The half-mermaid shook its head. "I don't know yet. Maybe the pulse of the earth trembled. I've just examined it. It's only 5 meters deep, and the spiritual energy around is not chaotic. It should be a regular collapse. Let's go. Let's take a look. Let's hope that human beings are up to no good." A half-mermaid said, "I don't think human beings are up to no good. Even if they're going to attack, they should have attacked our main peak. Why would they attack a deserted stone mountain?" A moment later, a bunch of half-mermaids and red demons reached the peak of the strange stone mountain. They were lost for words when they saw that the top of the mountain had collapsed. The half-mermaid scanned for a long time and said, "There shouldn't be a problem. I can still perceive 1 or 2 low-quality spiritual stones. Right, there's a demonic chi barrier between the strange stone mountain and our main peak, right?" A half-mermaid said, "Yes. Below the strange stone mountain are all large pieces of black copper. Although there are some spiritual stones, it's too difficult to excavate them. There's a mountain far from our main peak that's covered by the demonic chi of the remains of the big demons below the Sea Demon Mountain. We can't resist the violent demonic chi even if we go there ourselves." The half-mermaid leader nodded. "Okay, let's go back." He sent out inferior sea demons to cover an area of 30,000 kilometers. It said that Shueishenqi has come out of seclusion. Don't tell me he's up to something again. "Yes, my lord." Han Fei had no idea what happened up there. Han Fei didn't even know that he had somehow dug into the most difficult corner of the Sea Demon Mountain. At this moment, Han Fei kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp's head. "I told you to dig a hole. Look at what you've dug. It was black. Was this iron? Don't you dare dig a metal mine for me. We're already in the immortal cultivation era. Why do we need copper and iron ores? Not even a dime." Boom. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp smashed the huge black stones one after another with his hammer aggrievedly, and then Han Fei kicked it again. I told you to slow down. Where are you? What if he hears this? In fact, at this moment, the half-mermaids who stayed here to observe also looked at each other in bewilderment. A half-mermaid asked, "Has the earth vein been unstable recently?" On the other side, a half-mermaid said, "The earth vein in the sea has never been stable. How great would it be if an undersea chimney popped up in the Sea Demon Mountain?" You're overthinking it. Even if an undersea chimney popped up, it wouldn't come from a black copper mine. I estimate that the earth vein is quaking. It's better if this mountain of strange stones collapses. We can still pick up the spiritual stones inside. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp's excavation wasn't easy. Han Fei felt that little white might have led him to the wrong place. Whose mountain was full of mines? Han Fei found that the black stuff was definitely metal. He didn't know what kind of metal it was. However, if the nine-tailed mantis shrimp weren't good at digging holes, regular creatures would have been trapped here. Boom. Crack. All of a sudden, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp broke a large piece of black copper. Then, Han Fei's eyes glittered, as if he had found a treasure. When Han Fei removed the gravel, he was dumbfounded. It was a huge tortoise shell, a black tortoise shell. No one knew how old it was, but it looked like it had already turned into a fossil. Han Fei took out the blood-drinking knife and slashed at the turtle shell. Crack. He cut off a piece of the turtle shell. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp's big eyes widened. Han Fei glanced at him. "Are you an archaeologist? Go. Keep digging." It took him 2 days to dig. Han Fei found thousands of turtle fossils. He was rather upset. He had taken out a box to store spiritual stones, only to find that they were all fossils. What was the meaning of this? Could fossils be used as spiritual energy? Also, the turtle fossils were very hard. Sometimes, even the nine-tailed mantis shrimp had to beat them several times to break a piece. Suddenly, Han Fei's eyes glittered as he saw a red shadow among the rubble. Han Fei exclaimed, "An ultra-quality spiritual stone?" Information popped up in his eyes. Name: ultra-quality demonic stone. Introduction: condensed from the essence of spiritual liquid and demonic chi. It contains a huge amount of spiritual energy and demonic chi. But because the demonic chi is violent and tends to conflict with ordinary demonic chi, it is extremely difficult to absorb. Contains spiritual energy greater than 520,666 points. Effect: inedible. Han Fei was dumbfounded. What the fuck is this? Where's my ultra-quality spiritual stone? What the hell is an ultra-quality demonic stone? Han Fei couldn't help but look at the hexagon starfish. Can you use this thing? The hexagon starfish was also staring at the stone in a daze. After a long while, he said, "Why don't you try absorbing it? There seems to be demonic chi here." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "How long will it take you to absorb it? How many days? More than 10 days? Forget it, I'd rather throw it away than give it to you." The hexagon starfish? Han Fei said, "If you can absorb it in an hour, I'll give this stone to you. Look, the magnificent spiritual energy. I really don't want to give it away." The hexagon starfish really wanted to roll its eyes at Han Fei. "If you don't want to give it away, why don't you absorb it yourself?" Han Fei saw the words, "extremely difficult to absorb," and the demonic chi was conflicting. This thing could suck him to death if he was not careful. Of course, he couldn't absorb it casually. The hexagon starfish said, "Starfish, you can try absorbing it." Han Fei didn't panic. Even if this was an ultra-quality spiritual stone, it only had 520,000 points of spiritual energy. He could make it up by eating a few spiritual fruits. It wouldn't be a pity to throw it away. The hexagon starfish curled its tentacles, and after a while, a magnificent spiritual energy, mixed with a kind of demonic chi that Han Fei was very familiar with, began to escape back and forth from the hexagon starfish. After more than 4 hours, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp dug out a few more demonic stones, but there were no ultra-quality ones. At this time, the weird scene gradually dissipated, and the hexagon starfish slowly opened its big eyes. Han Fei quickly asked, "How is it?" The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes. It doesn't seem particularly difficult to absorb, but the demonic chi is not easy to refine and can't be absorbed quickly. Han Fei was stunned. You can absorb demonic chi? The hexagon starfish said, of course, all marine creatures can absorb it. By rights, we are all demons. Why can't we absorb demonic chi? Han Fei said, you are a demon, but I am not. The hexagon starfish said, I mean, all marine creatures are demons, and so is this big shrimp. The hexagon starfish pointed at the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp glanced at it. Han Fei frowned. Nonsense, then why didn't I feel any demonic chi from the nine-tailed mantis shrimp? The hexagon starfish responded, because we don't use demonic chi to cultivate. We only regard demonic chi as a kind of spiritual energy to nourish our bodies. However, those sea demons are different. They regard spiritual energy as demonic chi, and they seem to be able to transform each other, so there is a lot of demonic chi. Han Fei froze for a moment. Is there no difference between the two? The hexagon starfish said, there is a difference. The violent power in demonic chi is very dangerous, especially mixed demonic chi, which is even more dangerous. If you borrow the power of demonic chi, you will be infected with the spiritual energy in your body, and then you can cultivate as a demon. Han Fei didn't understand, but when he learned that demonic chi and spiritual energy could be transformed, he couldn't help but wonder why the half-mermaid stuffed an enormous amount of demonic chi into his body. More importantly, the demonic chi was absorbed by him. To be more precise, it seemed to be absorbed by the seed in his abdomen. Han Fei immediately kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Come on, have a piece. Han Fei summoned Little Fatty, Little Gold, Little Black, and Little White. He divided the 7 or 8 demonic stones that he dug out. Even the hexagon starfish had no problem eating them. Han Fei didn't believe that the nine-tailed mantis shrimp would have a problem eating them. Among them, Little Black, in particular, held a demonic stone in his mouth. Crunch, crunch. Just like chewing candy, a demonic stone was swallowed by Little Black in only a few seconds. Han Fei frowned. All the demonic stones were edible, but none of them reacted. They didn't jump or make a fuss. It didn't seem to be a big problem. So, demonic stones are no different from spiritual stones to a certain extent, right? Having figured that out, Han Fei wanted to have a taste. He kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and said, keep digging. Dig more of these things. However, in the next moment, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp suddenly unleashed a terrifying power and smashed the black copper mine dozens of meters deep. Boom. Han Fei looked back, only to see that it had collapsed again. Han Fei was so angry that he kicked it. Be gentle. Do you want to bury your master here as a fossil? However, Han Fei saw that the nine-tailed mantis shrimp's eyes were filled with agitation and redness. Shoot. You can eat them randomly. On the main peak of the Sea Demon Mountain, report. My lord, the strange stone mountain has collapsed again. Chapter 725. Han Fei sat on the ground gloomily. The current situation was a little awkward. The mountain kept collapsing. What was going on? Although the nine-tailed mantis shrimp sometimes used too much strength, it shouldn't have collapsed the mountain with one strike. However, it was useless to think about that now. Han Fei found that the demonic stones couldn't be eaten randomly. Little Black and Little White were fine, but Little Gold was already hitting the rocks with its head. Also, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp seemed a bit grumpy. Little Fatty had always been cold. At this moment, it was rolling some black copper ores with its tentacles and crushing them into pancakes. Han Fei was so scared that he hurried to take it back. Han Fei glanced at the hexagon starfish. Why are you fine? The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes. I didn't absorb the demonic chi. I slowly transformed it before I absorbed it. But Han Fei slapped the hexagon starfish to the wall and roared, why didn't you tell me earlier? The hexagon starfish said pitifully, didn't you tell me? Han Fei covered his head. That was enough. If there were sea demons up there, would they dig all the way down and kill him? On the peak of the strange stone mountain, a bunch of half-mermaids and red demons were standing here. The half-mermaid's head sensed for a long time before it said, "Why are the veins always shaking in the same place?" A half-mermaid asked, "Is there any creature below the veins?" Someone said, "Is it possible that some human beings ran down there? Are they trying to break the foundation of the sea demon mountain?" The half-mermaids looked at the half-mermaid as if he were an idiot. Why would human beings choose the strange stone mountain if they really want to do something? Is there anything worth digging except the black copper ores and a few spiritual stones there? The half-mermaid gritted its teeth and said, "What if the human beings are trying to dig for demonic stones?" The half-mermaids looked at him even more weirdly. "Are you out of your mind? Human beings use demonic stones? They would have been killed by the demonic chi without us even needing to do anything." Rumble! Just as the large group of sea demons were deep in thought at the peak of the strange stone mountain, a mountain 3 mountains away from the strange stone mountain suddenly collapsed. All the sea demons were dumbfounded. That was a mountain that was almost 1,000 meters tall. As a result, it was collapsing at a speed visible to the naked eye. This time, it was no longer as simple as a 6 or 7 meter depression on the wondrous stone mountain. That was a fucking mountain, and its height had dropped by half. Mountain rocks collapsed, demonic energy surged, extremely berserk. Immediately, the half-mermaid leader roared, "Damn it, let's go and take a look. What strange stone mountain collapsing, or the earth veins shaking, so the root cause is there." A large group of mermen ran to another mountain peak. Han Fei, on the other hand, was miserable. He and the 9-tailed mantis shrimp were hiding in a small hole no larger than 2 square meters. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp was forced to shrink a lot, and Han Fei even squatted on the ground. Gulp. Han Fei swallowed. "Damn it. The quality of this lousy mountain is too low. I'm just digging a hole, why is there no end to it?" Looking at the unstable cave that was full of cracks, Han Fei felt like it could collapse at any moment. He might even turn into a fossil. "Hurry up, 9-tailed mantis shrimp, stop hammering. If you hammer this mountain down, your master will bury you alive." The 9-tailed mantis shrimp began to dig, and Han Fei did something too. He refined a pickaxe and dug with the 9-tailed mantis shrimp. "This is too fucking scary. I'd better dig a hole and go out." As for the spiritual stones he saw, Han Fei was almost speechless. This box of spiritual stones was basically low-quality spiritual stones. Adding them up, he had less than 5 million points of spiritual energy. If he had known that there were so few spiritual stones, he wouldn't have dug at all. He could have eaten spiritual fruits for a few days, okay? Clang, 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 clang. Han Fei also began to work hard. The demonic stones could still be dug, but Han Fei directly threw them into Forge the Universe. He didn't dare to use them now. If he absorbed them and then launched a sacrificing punch into the hole like the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, he might bury himself alive. Han Fei didn't care whether anyone would find out anything. Anyway, if someone found out, he would hide in Forge the Universe and come out in a few days. Han Fei and the 9-tailed mantis shrimp dug the hole with all their strength. It took them more than 3 days to dig. During this period, it collapsed several times. Han Fei was used to it. It must be because the black ore was brittle, so it collapsed easily. Han Fei was digging upward. He thought that he'd better get out first. Otherwise, how long would it take for him to dig in this mountain range? On this day, Han Fei didn't know where he was digging. Suddenly, he dug a hole. Yes, a hole that seemed to have been dug by someone else was connected to the hole he dug. Han Fei? The hexagon starfish? The hexagon starfish asked, "Is someone else also digging a hole?" Han Fei looked at this hole in a daze. Who would be so free to dig a hole in a sea demon's nest? The hexagon starfish exclaimed, "You!" Han Fei scratched his head and pondered for a long time. The other party had already dug a hole. How convenient! He didn't even need to fight with the 9-tailed mantis shrimp. Han Fei perceived that the hole seemed to be more than 40 kilometers away from the inside. Most importantly, it was a miracle that the hole hadn't collapsed. Before Han Fei decided whether to go in or not, Little White had already swam into the hole. Han Fei? The hexagon starfish asked. Was this hole dug by Xia Xiaochan? Han Fei was also very surprised. I don't think so. How could Xia Xiaochan dig a hole? However, Little White had already gone, so Han Fei certainly had to follow. Putting away the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, Han Fei chased Little White all the way. After running for more than 30 kilometers, the hexagon starfish suddenly said, "There is demonic qi." Han Fei sensed it. The demonic qi was a very strange pale red energy. When Han Fei found that there were not only spiritual energy spots but also this pale red light spots in his eyes, he knew that this place must be weird. This passage was longer than Han Fei imagined, more than 100 kilometers long. As Han Fei moved forward, there seemed to be more and more demonic qi. Han Fei closed the acupoints all over his body to prevent the demonic qi from entering his body. Unfortunately, no matter whether he could resist it or not, some demonic qi would still enter his body. Therefore, Han Fei found that the seed in his dantian began to spin slightly, as if it was absorbing the demonic qi that entered his body. Han Fei was hesitant. Should I absorb it all? He knew that absorbing this demonic qi might improve his strength. However, he didn't know if there would be any side effects. After all, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and little fatty had problems before. Besides, demonic qi should be used by sea demons for cultivation. He was neither a sea demon nor a sea demon's cultivation technique. God knew what would happen if he absorbed too much. When Han Fei rushed all the way to the end of the passage, his eyes widened. This was an empty mountain, and the walls of the mountain were all scarlet crystals. Demonic qi was escaping from the crystals all the time. But Han Fei didn't have time to be shocked by the environment here. The moment he rushed into the mountain, the violent demonic qi wrapped around Han Fei and tried to break into his body. Damn it! Come on, Little White, come back. Suddenly, Han Fei saw that Little White rushed directly to the center of the cave, into the dark red demonic qi. Han Fei found that in the center of the mountain, a big stone was entrenched there. Wait, metamorphosis water? It was a real stone, but Han Fei could feel that the infinity water in his body was trembling slightly. What else could cause the infinity water to tremble? Furthermore, Little White had already swum to the front of the stone and kissed it. Han Fei immediately said angrily, "Xia Xiaotan, I know you are in the stone. What are you doing? Why are you here?" The stone didn't respond. Han Fei gritted his teeth. "If you don't answer, I'll go in." With that said, Han Fei stepped into the cave from the entrance. Immediately afterward, he heard the stone shout from the center of the mountain, "Get out! How did you find this place? You can't stay here." Han Fei frowned and scolded, "How did I come here? I'm looking for you. In order to find you, I dug for so many days that the mountain collapsed." A hole suddenly appeared on the stone, and Xia Xiaochan stuck her head out. "Get out! Get out! The demonic qi here is so wild that even sea demons can't come in. If you absorb the escaping demonic qi, you will die." Han Fei sneered. "Then come out if you can. If you come out, I won't go in." Han Fei had already felt that a large amount of demonic qi was forcibly pouring into his body, and the seed in his dantian had begun to spin quickly. Han Fei's body shook and he took 2 steps forward. "Are you coming out or not? If you don't, I'll go in immediately." Xia Xiaochan shouted, "Are you crazy? Get out!" A touch of redness flashed in Han Fei's eyes, and in the next second he simply floated to the belly of the mountain. At that moment, the seed spun crazily, and there seemed to be a huge funnel in Han Fei's body that began to swallow demonic qi. Swish! Xia Xiaochan finally came out. She hugged Han Fei and ran straight to the entrance of the cave, while saying to the hexagon starfish, "What are you looking at?" Set up an array to block the entrance of the cave. However, Han Fei was a little stunned. Why was Xia Xiaochan's body so slippery? He lowered his head, only to see glittering scales, some blue, some purple. What stunned him the most was that a soft and glittering tail appeared in front of his eyes. Chapter 726. Inside the hexagon starfish's door. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were staring at each other. After staring at each other for a long time, Xia Xiaochan pouted her lower lip, threw herself into Han Fei's arms, and burst into tears. Holding Xia Xiaochan in his arms, Han Fei clapped his hands. Don't cry, don't cry. I don't think it's a big problem. It's just a fish tail. Don't panic, don't panic. In fact, Han Fei was quite panicked. Not until this moment did Han Fei know why Xia Xiaochan ran away and why Xia Xiaochan refused to meet him. Although Han Fei had guessed this before, it was just a guess after all. After he killed Emo Qiansheng, he began to suspect that Xia Xiaochan had two spiritual beasts. And he guessed that Xia Xiaochan was not a human being through the giant arowana. However, when this became a fact, Han Fei was still panicked. No one could have imagined that Xia Xiaochan would turn into a mermaid just like that. Besides, no information had appeared in his eyes yet. That was to say, the demon purification pot couldn't read Xia Xiaochan's information. Wu, Xia Xiaochan cried so hard that her tears fell down. Han Fei comforted her. Don't be afraid. First of all, you are definitely not the half-mermaids we see now. Look at them, they have steel teeth, protruding cheekbones and gills. They haven't fully evolved yet. You look like the kind that has fully evolved. However, Han Fei didn't say anything. Hearing that, Xia Xiaochan cried even louder. The hexagon starfish wisely chose to shut up. It didn't expect that Xia Xiaochan was a sea demon. It had always thought that Xia Xiaochan was a human being. The starfish was a bit confused and wondered, can a sea demon evolve into this? If so, can starfish evolve into humans? If a starfish could evolve into a human, would a starfish evolve into a man or a woman? What's the difference between a man and a woman? The series of questions made the hexagon starfish dizzy, and its head was in a mess. Forget it. Human beings are too complicated. I'd better be a quiet starfish. In the room, Xia Xiaochan cried for a long time and said while sobbing, it's all that Yang Ying's fault. She injected demonic energy into me, but she couldn't hold it in anymore. Then she acted up. When I woke up, I found that my body was changing, and then I became a fish. Han Fei patted Xia Xiaochan's back and comforted her. Don't be scared. This Yang Ying is truly despicable. When I get back, the first thing I'll do is kill her. Xia Xiaochan nodded while crying. Yes, the first thing is to kill her. This woman is too hateful. Han Fei nodded. Yes, she's not a human at all. Xia Xiaochan nodded while crying. Yes. She must be a fish too. Han Fei. Xia Xiaochan was still crying. Han Fei, however, was attracted by her tail. Every single scale was like a gemstone that flickered with a strange radiance. Some of the scales were turquoise and shone brighter than emeralds. Some of the scales were purple, giving off an inexplicable sense of nobility. Some of the scales were bluish-purple, which seemed to be a transitional color that perfectly connected the transition from purple to blue. Some of the scales were lavender or vermicelli, which looked very soft. Xia Xiaochan's tail was very long, not the kind that had a straight fork. Instead, it looked like a long tail made of ribbons. The exquisite curve seemed even more perfect than the curve of a human body. Han Fei couldn't help but be dazzled by it. Han Fei subconsciously touched Xia Xiaochan's scales. Then, Han Fei suddenly felt that Xia Xiaochan's body, which was hugging him, stiffened. Xia Xiaochan hurried to push Han Fei away. Blushing, she said shyly in a low voice, "Why are you touching my... But, Han Fei..." Han Fei swallowed. I'm a little confused right now. Han Fei looked at Xia Xiaochan carefully, only to find that her face hadn't changed at all. She still looked like the beautiful Xia Xiaochan. Her hands didn't change either. There were no webs on them at all. Xia Xiaochan's arm joints and hair, on the other hand, were slightly different. At first, Han Fei thought that they were clothes, which were as soft as fine sand. However, when he took a closer look, he found that they weren't clothes at all, but fins that looked like gauze growing out of her body. But Han Fei would never admit that they were fins. How could fins be so beautiful? Xia Xiaochan's hair was a little purple. If he didn't look carefully, he wouldn't be able to tell. Seeing that Han Fei was looking at her, Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but burst into tears again. Seeing this, Han Fei said in a hurry, "Don't cry. Don't cry. It doesn't matter if you turn into a fish. The key is, can you still change back?" At this point, Xia Xiaochan was about to cry again. "It seems that I can't change it back." Han Fei took a breath. "So, you've been running like a crab all the way?" Xia Xiaochan nodded. "Sometimes a crab, sometimes a lobster, and sometimes a fish." Han Fei was lost for words. The metamorphosis water was truly amazing. It could change anything. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Can't we still use the metamorphosis water to transform into human beings?" But Xia Xiaochan patted her tail. "My tail is too long. To become a human, one had to become very, very tall. Moreover, even though the Myriad Creations water could transform into anything, the Myriad Creations water couldn't transform into anything. However, when it comes to battle, unless I'm in my original state, I won't be able to unleash my full strength." Han Fei thought for a moment. "Hey, don't panic. Since we're out, we're not in a hurry to go back. But why are you running to the nest of the sirens? Just now, how did you run into the belly of the mountain full of demon qi?" Xia Xiaochan sighed. "I followed the demonic qi here. I realized that ever since I'd inhaled the monstrous aura, I needed more and more. Then, I deliberately killed some half-mermaids and extracted their demonic qi. But that's not enough. Then I sensed it here. Then why did you throw all the spirit awakening fluid to Master Hexagon Starfish?" Xia Xiaochan was stunned. "All my spirit awakening fluid is for you." The Hexagon Starfish suddenly said, "You said that you wouldn't ask me for it. You said that the starfish drank it, and you said that you just needed to find Xia Xiaochan. Now I've found her." Xia Xiaochan was taken aback and then said angrily, "Big starfish, did you drink all the spirit awakening fluid?" The Hexagon Starfish quickly explained, "I didn't do it on purpose. The starfish couldn't help it. Besides, I left some for Han Fei." Han Fei was speechless. "You fucking left some?" "I was the one who insisted on getting it back." Han Fei waved his hand. Forget it. I'll just grab some more." "But why didn't you drink the spirit awakening fluid yourself?" Xia Xiaochan frowned. "I drank it. I drank a little and found that the spirit awakening fluid only slightly strengthened me. It's not enough. Besides, the spiritual energy in my body is changing, and what I need is a lot of demonic qi, not spirit awakening fluid. So, the spirit awakening fluid is not very useful to me." Han Fei seemed to have an epiphany. "So, in fact, every time you have an attack, it's because of demonic qi?" Xia Xiaochan nodded helplessly. "Yes, it's because I need demonic qi. I knew it after I inhaled the demonic qi." Han Fei's eyes lit up. "So, you're cured now?" Xia Xiaochan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "But I've become a fish now. I want to be a human, not a fish." Han Fei waved his hand. "Don't panic. I have a way." Xia Xiaochan rolled her eyes at Han Fei. "What can you do? Do you still remember the fish avatar technique I got from the fiery mountain?" Xia Xiaochan's eyes lit up. "Isn't that a mortal-level combat skill? And I can transform into a fish, not a human." Han Fei nodded. "It doesn't matter. If I can transform into a fish, I can transform into a human. I've been studying this technique recently, and now I need some time to continue to deduce it." Xia Xiaochan was surprised. "Can you transform from a fish into a human?" Han Fei nodded solemnly. "It should be possible, but it may take a little time. By the way, are you going to keep inhaling the demonic qi in this mountain?" Hearing this, Xia Xiaochan wiped her tears on the spot. "First of all, I have to transform all the power in my body into demonic qi. I wanted to trap you in that mountain and let you dig me out. I should have left. I didn't expect you to dig me out so soon." Han Fei sneered. "Do you think the nine-tailed mantis shrimp is good at digging holes?" "Phew." Han Fei took a long breath and suddenly poked Xia Xiaochan's tail with his finger. Xia Xiaochan hurriedly swung her tail to the side, looking shy. What are you doing? Ha. It seems to feel good. Let me touch it. You pervert. Han Fei smiled weirdly. It's not like I haven't touched it before. Come here. Go away. If you don't come over, I'll go over, I'll kiss you. Kiss. You can't see the children's shoes in this chapter. If you keep urging me, I'll get angry. Every once in a while, someone urges me. I haven't finished writing yet. The 4th chapter. That's all for today. I know many people have guessed that Xia Xiaochan is a fish, but don't panic. Is it really that simple? This is a very complicated story, far more complicated than a fish. I almost fell asleep writing today. End of this chapter. Chapter 727. Xia Xiaochan didn't know if Han Fei was really careless. But seeing that Han Fei didn't change after she turned into a fish, she was finally relieved. In fact, she didn't care what other people thought of her. But Han Fei, Luo Xiaobai, and the others were the only people Xia Xiaochan cared about. Especially Han Fei, who was a couple with her. Their relationship had deepened by another level. After messing around for a while, Han Fei finally got what he wanted. Ignoring Xia Xiaochan, who was blushing, he simply touched her tail. Han Fei clicked his tongue in wonder. Your tail is not hard at all. It's soft as if it's wearing a layer of gauze. Then, Han Fei was bitten by Xia Xiaochan. A long time passed. Xia Xiaochan asked, how can you resist such violent demonic qi? Han Fei said with a smile, the body tempering technique that I've been practicing has amazing abilities. However, I still absorb some of it. But don't worry, I didn't absorb much, so it shouldn't be a big problem. Xia Xiaochan was confused. Is that so? Han Fei said with a weird smile, what if I'm also a fish? Xia Xiaochan rolled her eyes. Then we'll be 2 fish. We won't return to the Scattered Stars Island anymore. We'll just swim in the ocean. After chatting for a while, all the misunderstandings were cleared up, and they became close again. Han Fei was secretly relieved. According to Xia Xiaochan, the demonic qi in the belly of the mountain was so chaotic that even sea demons couldn't resist it. However, sea demons could cultivate with the demonic qi that escaped. Some talented sea demons could even cultivate to a very high level. Just like that, Xia Xiaochan gave her suspicions too. She said that there must be more than one place like the Sea Demon Mountain in the outer sea of the Scattered Stars Island. Xia Xiaochan suspected that the reason why there was such violent demonic qi here was because a very powerful sea demon died here. So, the demonic qi gathered and turned into a spring of demonic qi. Therefore, this place became one of the bases of sea demons. Now that he had found Xia Xiaochan, Han Fei didn't intend to go out for now. Xia Xiaochan needed to transform demonic qi here, and Han Fei needed to deduce the fish avatar technique here. At this point, Xia Xiaochan had run back into the spring of demonic beasts. Han Fei, however, didn't immediately deduce the fish evolution technique. He decided to fuse the fish transformation technique and the demonization scripture first. Fuse. Demonic transformation art, demon level high quality, introduction, a semi-finished transformation type cultivation method. It can successfully transform a human into a demon. The survival rate is as high as 90%. It was the beginning of the era of demonic cultivation and the method to refine demonic qi. Deduction cost, 0/50, 000 deduction result. Unknown note. The initial method has its drawbacks. Learn it cautiously. Go to hell, son of a turtle. Han Fei suddenly cursed, which gave the hexagon starfish a fright. The hexagon starfish didn't dare to speak either. It sneaked down from Han Fei's shoulder and clung to the rock wall, fearing that Han Fei would slap it. Han Fei was lost for words. Although there was an extra vine in the demon purification pot and the fish avatar technique could be deduced again, he remembered that the deduction of the fish avatar technique required 30 million points of spiritual energy. Now, although the fusion only cost 3 million, the deduction cost had increased to 50 million. This was too much. He had just saved more than 82 million points of spiritual energy. Now, it would cost 50 million points to deduce a demon-level high-quality technique. How could he live like this? Han Fei couldn't help but regret. At the beginning, he felt that he had enough spiritual energy and didn't consider the possibility that his spiritual energy would run out. But now, with a huge sum of 82 million points of spiritual energy, he still seemed so poor. Furious, Han Fei stuffed 7 or 8 spiritual fruits into his mouth in a row, and the hexagon starfish almost drooled at the sight. The hexagon starfish thought, "How I envy Han Fei. You have to eat 7 or 8 spiritual fruits just to be angry. Starfish wants to eat them too." Hundreds of thousands of points of spiritual energy didn't make much difference to Han Fei now. Naturally, the deduction of the void fishing art had to be postponed. What he was afraid of was that the demon transformation art still couldn't be upgraded after this deduction. At that time, if it cost him 100 million points of spiritual energy, how many spiritual fruits would he have to eat to deduce it for him? However, at this point, how could Han Fei not postpone it? However, before the deduction, Han Fei still needed to study the demon transformation art carefully. When he was at the mortal level, he had to study this art for a long time every time he deduced it, and this time was no exception. Only by understanding more of the history, experiences, and cultivation methods of humans and sea demons could he better understand the effects of cultivating the demonic transformation art. As Han Fei browsed through it, he learned that the demon transformation art was actually not created by humans. In other words, the demon transformation art was actually created by those who had successfully practiced the fish transformation art. After the great purge of human beings, there were indeed very few people who practiced the fish transformation art. However, the first batch of people who practiced the fish avatar technique survived in the ocean. Among them, some people became stronger and finally created the demon transformation art. It was also this person who started the era of demonic cultivators and was known as the Sea King. Han Fei couldn't help but think of the Sea King's secret technique he got. Was that technique also created by this Sea King? If he thought about it carefully, wasn't the Sea King and the fishing god antagonistic? One started the era of demonic cultivators and was the pioneer of the current sea demons. The other was holding a fishing rod in his hand. Could it be that this person created the great era of national fishing? Of course, this was still quite far away from Han Fei. According to the demon transformation art, since the era of demonic cultivators began, the war between human beings and sea demons had begun. It started countless years ago and hadn't ended yet. What Han Fei wasn't sure about was which period of the war the Age of Doom he heard from the Snow God's Temple was referring to. After all, the reason why the Snow God's Temple was abandoned was that not only the land sank in the Age of Doom, but also the sea demons invaded. As for the demon transformation art, there was no record of how to deduce this art, nor any examples. Almost all the records were about the battles. Therefore, Han Fei skimmed through it and skipped it. There seemed to be some very powerful big shots in it. But what did that have to do with him? In addition to these historical records, there was also the cultivation method of the demon transformation art. It was about how to develop one's demonic heritage from an ordinary sea demon. Wait, develop demonic heritage? Demonic heritage can be developed? Isn't it what one is born to be? Han Fei suddenly realized that he seemed to have discovered a big secret. Wow. The demonic heritage of sea demons is not inborn, but can be developed? If that was the case, it would be terrifying. This alone could probably attract countless people to join the ranks of sea demons. After all, it was a demonic heritage that could grow. How could an ordinary person withstand it? It must be noted that in this world, most people were fishers, ordinary people. Only a very small number of people were able to cultivate to a higher level. Because the level of the spiritual heritage was too low. Han Fei hurriedly read on, only to find that it was about the use of demonic energy. The first sentence of the book. Demonic energy was a kind of heaven and earth energy of a higher level than spiritual energy. The explanation given was, spiritual energy was pure heaven and earth energy. Demonic energy was a new kind of energy born after the abnormal gathering of heaven and earth energy. It may come from the death of a strong master, or from the changes caused by the gathering of mysterious terrain. This kind of energy was more violent and could break the shackles of pure spiritual energy cultivation and develop a new cultivation system. After reading it all, Han Fei felt that he was almost brainwashed by this weird theory. Could it be that the strong had already begun to analyze the nature of the world? However, there were obviously many things in this demon transformation art that couldn't be explained. For example, how did ordinary creatures become sea demons? For example, did demonic cultivators have to find places where demonic energy gathered? What if they couldn't find it? Did they stop cultivating? For example, were there any sequelae of this cultivation? Could they transform? Could they change their cultivation methods? Han Fei glanced at Xia Xiaochan, who was still transforming demonic energy, and gritted his teeth. Continue to deduce. At that moment, all the spiritual stones in Forge the Universe were turned into powder. The spiritual spring was rapidly evaporating, and the stored spiritual energy suddenly dropped by a few million. 50 million points of spiritual energy were directly swallowed by the demon purification pot. This guy didn't hold back at all. Soon after, a new chapter began to unfold amidst the fog. True Spirit Demonic Scripture, Heaven Level, Low Quality, Introduction. An incarnation cultivation method that can turn living creatures into demons. Legend has it that the first Sea King turned into a law of nature, wrote the demon's secret record, and sent it between heaven and earth to unlock the inheritance of demonic cultivation for all creatures. It contains the cultivation method of sea demons. Deduction cost, 0/100 million. Deduction result. Unknown note. The Book of Enlightenment can enlighten all creatures, but it is extremely difficult to become a great demon. Hiss. When he saw this introduction, Han Fei gasped. Damn it, why does it sound even more mysterious than the void fishing art? The true spirit fishing art was only created by the 9 king-level masters. After it was created, heaven and earth cried together, and it rained. The creator of the true spirit demonic scripture had turned into a law of nature? And he opened the inheritance of demonic cultivation for all creatures? Han Fei swallowed. He was thinking about a question. What would human beings or sea demons become when they cultivated to the extreme? First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.